Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 418. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Guys, he nailed it this time.
Yes, there was totally not two false starts because I forgot how to intro the show. That totally did not happen.
No, he kept tripping on his own tongue because he knew what he wanted to say, he just couldn't get it out.
I say the exact same thing at the start of every episode. Or at least I have done for at least like 200 episodes. It changed at some point along the way, but it's been consistent for some time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so DC Comics Podcast, everyone. Welcome. Today on the show, we've got some news to talk about, of course, but there's also Absolute Power Origins Issue 1, Absolute Power Task Force 7 Issue 2, Detective Comics 1087, The Flash 11, Zatanna Bringing Down the House Issue 2, Power Girl Issue 11, The Nice House by the Sea Issue 1, and I've got a Patreon book I'll be talking about, American Vampire Second Cycle Issue 10. So that is what's coming up on the show today. So, while not quite as hefty for news as last episode, because obviously they made their big announcement for All In and the first Absolute stuff for the solicits coming out, they unsurprisingly have got a couple other things this week because Comic-Con's going on right now in San Diego. So there could even be more stuff right after the show. Like time of recording, it's middle of Saturday. We'll see if anything else pops up. But we have two announcements which we'll get to after our usual opening segments. But first of all, Matt, how was your week?
Way too long. So I'm glad it's the weekend so I can just keep working. No rest for the wicked.
Okay. That's fair. I guess I'd just been busy, I guess. Obviously I did see Twisters because I reviewed that on Collector's Cut. In fact, that went public like an hour ago at the time of recording.
Ooh.
So yesterday by the time you get this show, but yeah, so that review's out. Nice meaty 2-hour episode.
Good.
How we got to 2 hours on Twisters, I'll never know.
Because my spirit was there with you.
I don't. I'd have been 3 hours long if you were there. Oh dear. No, nothing super. For some reason, there was two different shows announced this week, right? TV shows that have both left me scratching my head for similar reasons, but kind of different contexts. One is a show for the boys called, it's not got a name yet, but it's a prequel show, right? But it's got a fair bit of power behind it because they've got Jensen Ackles and Aya Cash playing their roles, and it's set in the 50s. It's like, okay, you've got some of the bigger fan favorite kind of like guest stars of the main show to star in that. I can see what that is. That said, though, I do get a little bit cynical because they've already got Gen V. They've announced a Mexico spinoff. I mean, that may not pan out, but that was supposed to be happening. So this will be the fourth boys show if they all happen, if they all come to fruition. It'll be the fourth one. But the boys is very popular, and to be fair, so far Gen V was pretty good. It's not like they've had a shitty spin-off yet, but still, doing two more does feel like you're milking it a little bit. The other one, though, which similar vein, in that there was already a spin-off announced and there was a new show announced, but this one's even more baffling because who's asking for more Dexter? Because Dexter fans are waiting with bated breath for more of that show after it ended originally. And by the sounds of it, the sequel spin-off show that they did like a couple of years ago didn't wow anyone either. So they already had a prequel in the works for that, which always felt a bit weird when I heard that was announced because they did a lot of like little flashbacks in the main show, and there was a lot of like, his dad talking to him about his childhood. So I feel like they're probably going to either be rehashing or retconning some stuff there just to have stories in it. But today they announced that Michael C. Hall is going to be narrating the prequel. Okay, fine, I guess that makes some sense. But they also announced that he's going to star in a new sequel show.
Oh, jeez.
So there'll be a fourth Dexter show. Now, I did read some things about the last one they did that is very spoilery. So there's a very simple and easy theory as to what this new one's going to be, but I won't spoil that last one just in case anyone cares for some reason. But yeah, so yeah, we're in a world where there'll be a fourth Dexter show. Although, to be fair, that last one was basically just an extra season of the original show. It wasn't really a separate thing per se, but yeah, 4 Dexter shows potentially all in. That's a lot of Dexter.
That seems a bit excessive.
Especially since the original show ran far too long as it was.
Yeah. Wow.
So I don't know. And I go onto Newsarama to get any DC Comics news today, and one of the headlines I see is The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon gets early season 3 renewal, and I'm like, not only is there like 8 Walking Dead shows at this point, the names of them are so dull and uninspired. Just Walking Dead :
so you
character name.
You found news that wasn't related to Wolverine and Deadpool? Because I was just looking through the news, and every other story, like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
These websites, they love to milk the big new thing. It's the new movie out this weekend, so they're all...
Yeah, but I remember, like, using this site on other things. That's almost unusable. Because it's very little things. I don't know if it's a bit that they're doing or what, but they're hyper fixating on things that don't need to be their own article.
Oh, no, yeah. It's an SEO thing. They want people to find stuff when they're searching, and it's why when you search a simple question and it links you to an article as one of the first results, and the answer to your question is like 5 paragraphs down, and the first 5 paragraphs are just fluff explaining what the thing is that you're even talking about, and it's nothing anyone needs in these types of articles, but it's all there because you have to have some word count, and you want people to scroll past at least a couple of ads. It's all very cynical. It's all very gaming the system.
Gross.
That's all it is. And honestly, at a certain point, it's all going to be written by AI, because I can't imagine any human being enjoys writing that shit.
When we had our little site 10 years ago that we wrote for, I didn't mind writing stuff then, right? But we weren't doing it for money or anything. We were just getting our feet wet. And I didn't mind writing stuff. But like, you asked me to write a thing on dog pool, and I'm like, nah, I'm okay.
Dog
crazy.
What are you talking about?
That was the first thing that came up. Something about the history of dog pool, because I guess dog pool shows up or something. I don't know. I'm steering clear of the Wolverine and Deadpool stuff because
I honestly, Matt, I never heard of dog pool. I thought you were just having like a moment where you like, like you're maybe having like early Alzheimer's or something, and the word just swapped out. Or
no, I'm not that creative, sir. I appreciate it though. No. I'm already annoyed by the amount of stuff that we've had with Deadpool and Wolverine, that it came out a day ago, maybe a day and a half, depending on show times, and just inundated by it. And it's just like, guys, let's take a breath, please.
I can't just avoid most of it anyway. It's been that way for a good decade. I remember like when Force Awakens was like in production, I remember there being articles about who was doing the catering, and I'm like, I get it, people are excited, but calm down. Calm down, guys.
If you're clicking on that, go outside. All right, go get some sun, natural vitamin D. It's good for you. Just don't spend, if you're out in the desert, don't spend up too much time. I got sunburn on my neck. I guess I missed some spots with the sunblock today.
Oh dear.
Yeah, just a little cranky. I'm tired. Might be having too much caffeine at this point too. So trying to push it all out with water.
That's sounds like you, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean that's it. I'm also disappointed, Pete, that I did a top 20 list on Twitter with my Letterboxd, and specifically put a movie in there to bait you.
I think I saw this post, but I don't remember this at all.
Yeah, I put Kong Skull Island fairly, noticeably.
Wait, your top 20 of all time?
Yes. And I mainly did that to get a reaction from you, and then there was none.
I just never saw it. And besides, I would know that's not real. There's no way it's actually in your top 20 of all time. That is just... it's bait. To quote Mad Max, that's bait.
It might be. I have a hard time getting past 10 because I don't rate things in that. So trying to think of things past there, I was like, yeah, I kind of like that, and I kind of like this. I only had one Star Wars movie, so that was about it. I had all 3 original Indiana Joneses. And
a top out of 20, you had 3 Indiana Jones. Do you know how boring that is, Matt?
Yep. I know. I had 1 Hitchcock. So hey.
Out of 20 though, it's not like it's okay. 3 Indiana Jones in a top 100, fine. I can live with that. That's fine. They're spread out throughout the 100, whatever. But no, top 20.
Top 20, yeah.
No, I was just thinking I want to do a top 250 soon, to be honest. I was just thinking that the other day.
You and Les, man.
Can't get past 10. I can't narrow it down to 10.
Yeah, see, I can, because there's 10 movies that I love, you know, and they're not, and again, they're not great. I know not everyone's going to agree, but they're movies that I love, you know, so, but yeah, I specifically put Kong on there to watch Pete, and he didn't even see the post, and, you know, Connor did, and Connor, oh, of course, you know, but Connor didn't give me the reaction that I wanted either, so.
Connor gives you anything you want from him, to be honest.
That's true. I don't want him here, he's here. I do want him here, he's not here. That's his main, his default setting.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Yeah. Anyways, let's talk about, let's get the top 10 down, so then we can talk news and then books.
Do you hear that, folks? He's clamoring.
I'm not clamoring, I just have things to do.
He's yearning for the Kindle top 10. It's
101 degrees outside. I got to go help my brother with yard work. So it's only going to get hotter. So yeah, I'm just trying to get through.
For the top 10. No. He's finally dropped the facade. He's admitting it to himself and to everyone else.
I forgot the tweet, but someone had responded or something about kids going back to work, and it was, you know, children yearn for the mines.
Oh yeah, I've reposted that. It's Minecraft.
Okay. That's what it is.
They shut the mines in like 1910 or whatever, and you know, 2023, the most played game on earth from children is Minecraft. They yearn for the mines.
They yearn for the mines. It cracks me up. I yearn for the top 10 as much as the kids yearn for the actual mines.
You'd be surprised. Kids are stupid, Matt. They're pretty stupid.
I'm glad we still line up on that. Team FTK.
All right, yes. Top 10, ComiXology, now Kindle. They're all combined now, so interesting to see how things mix up here between DC, Marvel, and all the rest of it. But then just let me double check something here, because
Uh-oh.
Oh, no, I do. Okay, well, I'll explain what my little moment of confusion was after we've done the top 10.
Gotcha.
What's your guess for number 1?
Well, there was a big new X book that dropped today. I'm going to guess NYX number 1.
Oh, it's an acronym. I thought it was NYX.
No, I thought it was NYX.
That makes more sense. New York X-Men. I get what they're going for, but it looks like NYX. In fact, on Kindle, on Amazon's website, Y and X are lowercase, so it actually does just look like NYX.
That's weird.
Yeah. Yep. You're right, though. It's not problem.
Okay. That's my favorite. So that was the book that originally debuted, X-23. Was an old NYX, like 20 plus years ago at this point.
Oh, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's fun that they're rolling that back. Yeah, it was like an anthology, and then I don't know if it was meant to be like in continuity, and they took that Laura character and, you know, spun her into X-23.
Interesting. Number 2 is Detective Comics.
Hey.
Number 3, Nice House by the Sea. That's actually a little surprising, but go on. Number 4, Ultimate Black Panther. Number 5, Absolute Power Task Force 7. Number 6 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I believe that's issue 1 from Jason Aaron. I need to get back at the Turtles comic. I really liked the first 60 issues or whatever I read of that IDW series. Number 7 is Green Arrow 14. Number 8 is Absolute Power Origins. Number 9 is Zatanna Bringing Down the House. And number 10 is Void Rivals. That's the Robert Kirkman book. Actually, do you know what it was? See, when I was glancing at the top 10 before I started doing them there, I was concerned because I always deselect a few publishers, you know, basically the manga publishers and stuff, just to get rid of the clutter. Don't
pop up, yeah.
And I thought, did I accidentally not click Marvel? Because I didn't see anything instantly that looked like Marvel. And obviously NYX is, but it didn't stick out to me at a glance. And I went, did I exclude Marvel? And I'm like, no, it's just that there's not actually that many Marvel books in the top 10. In fact, DC had 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. So that's 6 out of the top 10. And amazingly, actually, 2 of the other books were not Marvel or DC. It was Image and IDW. So Marvel only had 2 books in the top 10. Interesting. When you go down past 10, Flash is right there, just sort of, right at number 11.
sitting there.
Then you got yeah, there's a Moon Knight, there's a Wolverine Blood Hunt and stuff. I mean, admittedly, it doesn't seem like Marvel outside of NYX has a bunch of big stuff this week. It seems a bit more muted for Marvel.
Yeah.
But yeah, still, having said that, still a pretty good week for DC as far as the rankings on Kindle go. So cool. We can get into the news then, because there's a couple of things. 2 new books in particular that we can talk about. First thing that was announced was a new Justice League book, Justice League Unlimited being the title, which is coming from Mark Waid and Dan Mora. Now, I am very confused about that second part there, the Dan Mora part, because Dan Mora is also supposed to be on Superman. So unless this book's launching like way after the first arc of that Superman book starting, which would be weird, because why would they announce it this early? I know it's Comic-Con, but this would feel too soon. It makes me think that Dan Moore was on like 3 issues of Superman, and then he's jumping over to this.
Yeah, that makes sense, because it says Unlimited will launch in November. So,
yeah, so yeah, well, okay, maybe only 2 it. Well, maybe he's got some lead time. Maybe that's why he can jump over as quickly.
Mark Waid, when this got announced too, he said he's never letting Dan Moore go.
Oh,
and that he's, so and Dan Moore laughed kind of uneasily.
F you, Williamson. F you. You don't get to keep Dan Moore.
Yeah. And so, it seems they have a pretty good relationship working. So yeah, maybe Moore also just wants to do the Midnight Superman book.
Now that I'm saying this though, I'm like, how can he have lead time? He was just on, like, we just did a Dan Mora book last week, and he's got another book next month, I'm sure. Yeah, I don't know. The man's a damn powerhouse. He's a workhorse.
And Waid said too that he's very confident that Mora can do 2 books a month, consistently without having delays and whatnot. I mean, he's shown that. So
that is weird for an artist, though. That is weird. It's
almost unheard of,
especially when the work's good.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. It wouldn't surprise me though if he ends up dipping out of Superman a bit more often just to keep up on the other one. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting lineup here. I mean, you've got a few of the obvious ones, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, but
the Trinity.
Yeah, but we got Star Sapphire and we got Captain Atom on this team.
Captain Atom. We had a Martian Manhunter, Black Lightning. So I'm wondering if it's going to have a rotating cast around the Trinity, like the old cartoon.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, the image they put out doesn't have Black Lightning or Martian Manhunter on it, from what I can see.
So I saw art from before that it was like a cover that had them on there. So that's how I knew they were there. At least I thought I saw Manhunter. I know I saw Black Lightning. So yeah, I can't see. Sapphire joining the Justice League. That's a new take.
Yeah, that was the one that stuck out to me as being, I mean, Captain Atom, whatever, but Star Sapphire's like, okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we kind of even guessed, not this exact thing, but we did kind of say, oh, we're probably due a new Justice League book after all this Absolute Power stuff wraps up, and it wouldn't be shocking if Waid was the one, especially since Waid obviously left Shazam, he'll be done with Absolute Power. It kind of made a lot of sense that he might be on one of the new big books. And here it is.
Flagships.
Yeah, and Justice League Unlimited, I mean, I don't know if the name Unlimited's ever had much of a history in the comics itself, but obviously the animated series is a big sort of, a big gem in the cap of DC as a whole. So them using that name's fun. And maybe the reason why they're using that name is because they do want to rotate a lot of the team from arc to arc. So.
Yeah, so I wonder if this is why he jumped off of Shazam, right? Was to start getting lead on Justice League.
I mean, possibly, but I mean, I'd say it was probably more Absolute Power first, and then this is taking that slot in his schedule.
Because we just did solicits. He was still on World's Finest, right?
Yeah, but that's been true through all Absolute Power. Yeah.
No, that's what I know. So so he just trades one for the other. So two for him too. It's about right.
Yeah.
No, very exciting. Mark Waid, Justice League. I mean, he's not a stranger to a Justice League book. He did it back, Justice League of America, way back when. So, very, very exciting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't be mad at this news. I'm sure if Connor was here, he's like, oh, it's another Waid book, and we're used to Waid on characters or something.
Okay, and Why are you mad that he's doing something he's good at?
Yeah. Also, he's on Action as well, right? Wasn't that announced last week?
Yeah. He's doing him and Tamaki on the backup.
Oh, that might just be a 1 month thing.
Yeah.
Because it was weekly for that month. Yeah, so cool. Justice League Unlimited. So we're still getting new big book announcements for later in the year. And then the other one, and this was also something that we speculated was coming, which was now that they've done the Trinity in terms of like absolute Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman books, we kind of expected that there might be some more down the pipeline. And sure enough, we have the 4th absolute book. We have Absolute Green Lantern. And interestingly, not only is it exciting who's writing this book, it's notable because it's the first time they've done a DC book. And that is Al Ewing, who I think we all kind of greatly love via Indestructible Hulk. Or Mortal Hulk, not Indestructible. There's been too many Hulks with different
funnily enough, Mark Waid was on Indestructible Hulk.
Oh, that's right. I remember reading that.
Yeah. Hulk worthy. That was that moment.
There you go. So, yeah, this is super interesting. Yeah. Also, Absolute Flash.
Absolute Flash by Jeff Lemire and Nick Robles.
Oh, I didn't see this. Okay, I'm going to complain about Newsarama's website right now, right? Because I clicked, right, at the top of the article for the Green Lantern news, I clicked on the DC Comics part, right? Because it says comics, then, Arrow, DC Comics, Arrow, and then Green. So I clicked on DC Comics just to look at all of the recent DC Comics news. This article was not in there. God damn it. So, okay.
I only know about the Lemire Flash stuff because Tim heard about it and got very excited because he loves Jeff Lemire. And then Connor corroborated it, so I just took it as fact. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so Al Ewing's doing Absolute Green Lantern, which they mentioned is going to be a very different take, much like the other Absolute books. It's going to be a first contact story, and they mentioned that it's going to have at least Hal, John, and Joe, interestingly, in the book.
Very cool.
So, interesting to see a lot of writers really latch on to Joe. Ever since
she's such a fresh slate, right? She's the newest of the Lanterns.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting mix. So that's very cool. Very interesting to see what they do with that. And it sounds like a super sci-fi story, and it sounds like they're going in a very different direction, so that's cool. And then, of course, Absolute Flash, which I'm just learning about now, apparently. Yeah. Oh, that's because it was in the same article as the Justice League story. That's why I didn't see it. I just didn't read the whole article. Yeah. So, yeah, Absolute Flash with Jeff Lemire, which is cool. Lemire's back in a DC book, and it really, I mean, when you look at that Absolute line of books, it really is like an all-star lineup down the entire line.
Scott Snyder, Jason Aaron,
Kelly
Thompson, Al Ewing, and now Jeff Lemire. It makes me think if they're going after the big 7, right? So there'll be 7 of these Absolutes.
I mean, maybe. I don't know if I see Absolute Aquaman.
Yeah.
I don't know if I do. If part of me even thought they might only just do the Trinity for a while and then announce stuff for later, but I mean, no, they're doing Flash and Green Lantern are absolutely the next 2 that you do out of the team. It is interesting though, because part of me, I'm hoping, obviously I really like all these, I'm hoping these are great things to talk about and read, but I will say, part of me is yeah, but I'd kind of like Al Ewing on a regular DC book as well. I'd kind of like Jeff Lemire on a regular DC book. So it's nice, but there's just a little bit of an asterisk of being okay, it's nice to have these writers doing DC books, but it's kind of a shame that they're also not doing... Don't get me wrong, Lemire's best stuff at DC, I think, was Animal Man, and it was a very niche character rather than one of the bigs. Well, obviously did a little bit of time on Green Arrow, people like that a lot. But Al Ewing has especially proved that he can do long runs with established mainline characters over at Marvel. So I would kill for an Al Ewing run on, a nice long 50 issue or something run on whatever appeals to him, honestly. And
I wonder if that has to do with Aaron coming over, because I know they're pretty close. Maybe.
I mean, Aaron's been dipping his toes recently.
Yeah.
In
so I'm
DC.
wondering if he helped kind of hey, come work on this.
Now, of course. Should mention that this could absolutely be the first step in the door, and this has happened before with other writers where they'll do one little thing, and then all of a sudden they've got two ongoings or whatever. Like that happens. It's happened with multiple writers. Even Tom Taylor back in the day, you know, he was just the guy doing Injustice, but all of his good stuff. Well, not Injustice. I never read it, but all of his important main stuff that people were really noticing was over at Marvel, and then all of a sudden he was over at DC doing several books, and here we are now. So this could just be the first step towards Al Ewing being on a regular book. So.
The first thing I remember reading from Tom Taylor wasn't even Injustice. It was a Rebirth Earth 2. He took over from James Robinson.
I mean, New 52 Earth 2.
Yeah, that's what I meant. New 52. Sorry. Earth 2. And I remember reading it and being like, who is this guy? And he took some, you know, weird shots at stuff. And I was like, Tom Taylor, Australian. Huh. And
who is this Australian?
Yeah. Yeah. And then he started blowing up over at Marvel afterwards, and I was like, oh, okay. And then he came back to DC, and he's become our patron saint of the show. So,
so honestly, all three of these books sound good to me. Like, it feels like we're going to have a much more robust, exciting overall lineup of books on a week-to-week basis based on all these announcements. So, can't say I'm mad about any of these.
And it definitely feels now with the announcement of Flash and Green Lantern, it does feel like this is DC's Ultimate Universe kind of at play. I mean, it's concurrent. It's not replacing anything.
No.
So if you just want to read those, you could, right? Or if you don't want to read those, you can just read the mainline stuff as well. Have
they spoken much about them all interconnected? Like, are they all existing in the same universe? Have they said that?
I don't know about that, but I do know Scott Snyder and Josh Williamson said when it first got announced that there are plans to cross them over into the mainline. So
that's right.
It would make sense that they all are set within the same world.
They probably are. It was just like they all sound so like standalone, which is they should because they're all establishing new versions of the characters. But it just, I do wonder if we are going to get to a point where there's an absolute event where it's just the absolute characters all joining up for something, which could be fun. Like I'm not against that happening, but just don't rush to it. You know, take a year. You know, tell all the not origin stories necessarily. I mean, they probably are. But
remember, it took, I think, a year and a half for Ultimate Spider-Man to cross over with Ultimate X-Men, which that's a pretty big lead time.
Yeah.
You know, for something new like that.
I think part of the benefit of, and this was true of the Ultimate Universe for a time, obviously eventually it might have spiraled out of it, but is that when you only have, say right now, we only get these 5 absolute books.
Yeah.
It's a really manageable amount to keep up with and feel like you're, you know, there's not a ton of little books, there's not a ton of little things. It's 5 books to keep a hold of, and then when they eventually have an event, it's like, okay, I've been reading all 5 of these books, I'm investing in every single corner of this universe. It feels more, like, more, you can comprehend the whole thing, you can keep up to it, it's not too much. That's kind of the appeal in some ways, is like, okay, when Ultimate Spider-Man and X-Men have a crossover, it's like, oh yeah, but it's just 2 things. It's like watching 2 TV shows that have a crossover, as opposed to, oh, I feel the need to keep up with 25 comics a month because I'm...
It feels like that's what The Boys is becoming, right? Like, you have 16 boys shows by the end of it. It's its own comic book imprint.
Yeah. Excited for all this. There'll be definitely some interesting conversations in all of it when it all starts to hit. I can see Connor being a big fuddy-duddy and hating everything and saying, I'm not reading anything past issue 1. So he'll have 3 DC books a week.
I know he didn't say this, but when we said Jason Aaron on Absolute Superman, I heard him go, pass. Like, you know. So, yeah, we'll see. And same with Snyder on Batman. But people have been asking Scott Snyder questions on Twitter about his Ultimate Batman. But my favorite one he answered was...
Ultimate Batman?
Jesus Christ. Absolute Batman. And he asked him, how much can Absolute Batman bench? And Snyder's response was, however much you think it is, multiply it by 4. I was just like, good. He's having fun with this.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, Snyder's Absolute Batman is probably the one that I'm the least looking forward to, just because his previous Batman is, you know, it went downhill for me and it left me feeling cold after a while. Admittedly, this being a complete separate universe take on the character means it's a little bit more open to mess with it and not piss me off because, hey, it's its own thing, it's its own universe, whatever. Don't get me wrong. If you have like a Superman Earth 1 style thing, like I can still hate it. It still might piss me off because it just fundamentally doesn't get the character, but you know, that's a whole different kettle of fish. Couple of little bits of news that feels worth mentioning here. One, DC are going back to their old logo. I mean, it's kind of a new take on the old logo, but the old Stars logo,
the bullets,
from before the spin era. So the one they had from the 70s all the way up to 2005. Because they revealed, and I saw this on Twitter, the like a little clip of them playing the new studio logo that will appear before movies and stuff, and it was like this old Golden Age style looking Superman, then it spun around into the Bullet logo and it said DC Studios underneath it. It looked quite slick. I mean, I actually quite like the one we've got now, to be honest, but I mean, yeah, it's nice to see. It looks good. It feels classic. I mean, I'll always have nostalgia for the spin logo because that's the one that was around when I really started getting into comics, but you know, it is what it is. Yeah, nice. I mean, everything beats the Peel logo. Remember the Peel? That Peel era was horrible. One was
terrible.
Yeah. I just felt like something you put in a corporate like letterhead, like that stupid little Peel logo. We're not a comic book company. We're simply a publisher. That's what that felt like. We're not into comics. We're publishing. We're publishing periodicals. That's what we're doing.
You know, this means now that Tom King's gonna have to get a new DC logo hat.
He's probably got a collection. He's probably got like the entire set. He's probably went back and custom made some of the old logos into some hats.
Yeah.
Fun stuff.
But no, that old the Bullet logo, the Bullet Shield type one is definitely nostalgic. Goes back to, you know, me being a kid and looking in the grocery store when comics were still on newsstands. I mean,
between this push in the comics with all these new all-in style things happening in Absolute, and then you've got the start of the movies hitting next year. I mean, it might be a new intro. I mean, I can see why they've decided now to have like a slightly new or old school like revamp of the logo, because it does feel like we're starting a new era, both you know, in comics and in the multimedia side. So
across the board.
So cool. And then the other thing to mention is, well, there's Comic-Con, so the Eisners were yesterday, I believe. So I thought I'd just point out a couple of notable winners. Best writer went to Mariko Tamaki for Roaming, from Drawn and Quarterly. Best writer / artist went to Daniel Warren Johnson for Transformers.
Fair.
Cool. Best penciler / inker or penciler inker team. That's a clunky title. But that actually went to Jillian Tamaki for Roaming as well. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Best painter, multimedia artist, interior art went to Sana Takeda, which I can't say I know. Worked on Monstrous at Image and a couple other things.
Okay.
Best graphic album went to Roaming by Tamaki and Tamaki.
What is this Roaming? I have no idea what this is.
Yeah, I'd never heard of this either until the Eisners. Best new series went to Somna, a bedtime story by Becky Cloonan and Tula Lote.
Ooh.
So that's the thing.
Tula Lote.
Best continuing series. This was the category that stuck out to me. So the winner of this was Transformers by Daniel Warren Johnson. What I thought was funny about this category, though, is that the other 4 nominees were all DC books. So Transformers won, but the other 4 books were Birds of Prey, Nightwing, Shazam, and Wonder Woman, which, to be fair, I do genuinely think are 4 of the best DC books that have been going this past year. So, you know, shout out to the Eisners for agreeing with us, basically. Best limited series went to PP Poo Poo. Okay, I hadn't read that ahead of time. So
this sounds like Bodie McBoatface.
PP Poo Poo by Caroline Cash. Best single issue / one shot went to Nightwing 105. So our DC crew did take home some awards.
What issue was that?
That's a good question. I don't remember what number was what.
You said 105, right?
105, indeed, yeah. Mass investigating.
That looks like it was. Was that the start of?
Was that maybe issue 200? Remember they had like a legacy?
I think so.
Yeah.
It came out in June of this year, so it was fairly recent. So yeah, I think that was the Nightwing 200. Does that make sense?
Interesting. Best anthology went to Comics for Ukraine. Best adaptation from another medium went to Watership Down. And I'll pretty much stop here because there's a lot of categories in the Eisners. You know, you get all the obvious ones that you could think of, but then there's like publication for kids, publication for teens, reality-based work, graphic memoir, digital comic, web comic, US edition of an international material, US edition of an international material, Asia. Best publication design. So yeah, there's a lot of other categories I won't get into, but I wanted to just highlight some of the winners of the bigger categories. And I thought it was funny that Transformers beat 4 DC books for continuing series.
I mean, it's Daniel Warren Johnson, though, so I fully understand.
Oh yeah,
he's a powerhouse.
I'm not mad at that. I just think it's funny that all the other books nominated were all DC. I'm like, like, where's all the Marvel books in this Eisner's list? I don't see them.
Is it quality over quantity?
Yeah, I'm not even trying to throw shade. I'm just genuinely like, really, is there things that creatively not great at Marvel, right? Is the quality just not terrible, but is it just not good enough to even have some nominations?
Yeah. Usually a Daredevil will sneak in there at some points, because it tends to be higher prestige, some kind of thing like that. But yeah, it's definitely weird.
Yeah, it's strange. I don't know what to make of it. But hey. All right, let's go on to the comics then, shall we? So, Absolute Power Origins Issue 1, John Ridley writing with Alitha Martinez on the art. So this is a 3-issue miniseries tying in to Absolute Power, but more accurately, it's an origin story for Amanda Waller, which is kind of interesting, actually, because I don't believe I've encountered much of her, like, how she started.
Yeah.
How did she become the Amanda Waller we all know? Maybe, I'm assuming she was in the original Suicide Squad back in the 80s. Like, I don't know if that ever dealt with it or anything like that, but...
Look.
I mean, you don't have to answer me. I was just...
No, but I'm curious as well, because I first remember her from the... She showed up in the Jeff Loeb Batman Superman book when Luthor was president, and she was in his inner council. That was the first time I remember.
I mean, she was definitely around before then.
No, I know, and I just don't, Checkmate, I also think of her as, so I don't know if she's like, Suicide Squad from the beginning or what, but she's just always a character too that I don't necessarily think of her origin. She's just, kind of evil government figure, right? She's always out for herself, threatening to blow people's heads off with the, the neck bombs and whatever. Actually, first appeared in Legends #1 in 1986, created by John Ostrander, Lynn Wein, and John Byrne.
I mean, it's Ostrander, it's around that time period, so it feels like, she was introduced along with, if not with the Suicide Squad, and certainly around the same time, and by the same folks. So, this is interesting. So it kind of starts off by paralleling the origin of Batman to the origin of Waller, which does mean we actually see the Waynes go down an alleyway, which did make me laugh. Do you know what? Actually, here's the thing though. This was nowhere near annoying though, because it wasn't a Batman book. There's something about it not being a Batman book that it means it doesn't bother me.
In a vacuum, I understand that, but I feel like since I've said that, I have had to see Crime Alley more times, and it's like the universe is just serving it to me and going, "Oh, you don't want to see this? Guess what? Amanda Waller book, page 1, Crime Alley."
It does feel like we see it in a comic book at least once a month.
Yes.
Without fail, once a month we'll see the night the Waynes were murdered. Even if it's just one panel flashing back to it, we'll see it once.
Yeah.
But here it kind of parallels kind of her origin story and how she lost her husband after the death of her daughter. Her daughter was apparently raped and killed by a killer called the Candyman, and Waller's husband went out to get some form of justice, revenge, because the police weren't doing anything.
Vengeance. Yeah.
And basically, when he tried to confront Candyman, he ended up just getting killed himself.
So he kills Candyman, but Candyman also managed to get a shot off, and he ends up dying. And the police are kind of like, "Oh, hey, this was a revenge thing. We'd want to do more, but we can't." Versus
to be more specific, they say that he was committing a felony when he was shot, so therefore, like, and this is something that Waller brings up, is that if you say he was committing a crime when he died, it means we won't get life insurance, and the cops just kind of like shrugs and says, "I don't know what to tell you, that's just the way it is." But this all parallels with Batman like going after Joe Chill and sort of contrast the differences like between them, because Joe Chill, as we find out, obviously we just know this, goes to prison, right? He gets put behind bars for years, and it's actually Commissioner Gordon. I mean, he might not be commissioner at the time, but he's on the news on the press conference saying how yes, there's some rumors about like a third party intervening and like helping us catch him, and that may be the case, but we approve of someone if someone's committing a crime, like a violent crime. We do encourage people if they can to get involved. And obviously this is the thing that Amanda Waller hears right after she's had this conversation with the police about her husband's death, and her 3 like surviving kids kind of standing behind her. Like you can tell that, like, I didn't really imagine them tying something Jim Gordon said, because Jim Gordon obviously supports Batman, to be the thing that gets under Waller's skin, because Waller's husband wasn't able to do anything about what happened to their kid, and that kind of sets off this righteous sort of fight that she thinks she has, and her hatred of vigilantes and anyone who's working sort of outside the system. But you could also argue in a weird way that she should just as equally hate the system itself. But
yeah,
I
mean, it's Ridley's going out of his way to point out that there's 2 justice systems. There's the one where the police will look the other way and the one that they won't, right? And she's kind of formed by that, where she's like, well, I have to control everything then. And that's what I mainly got from this. Is this really, because she lacked so much agency, she made a choice where she'll never lack agency again. Yeah,
she becomes a control freak, right? And the issue is then the story of her volunteering for this man running for councilman, and basically saying she'll work for free, she'll volunteer, she's the first one in the office, she's the last one to leave. It's just, I'm going to get you nominated, I'm going to get you elected, even though the election he's losing the election. Like, everyone thinks he's going to lose, it's a lost cause, but she's like, no, I'm going to do this. And one of the reasons why she's trying to have him win is because his opponent, and we never even see the opponent, like the guy who's going to be councilman, like, he's only referenced in dialogue, but when he does come up, Waller talks about how, he supports these masked vigilantes, obviously. And it's something that I don't think we've ever seen explored too deeply in a comic, is this idea that how politicians in Gotham, just for example, Gotham, would use the idea of, like, okay, is one pro-Batman and one anti-Batman, and how does that fit into either side of the political fence? That's very interesting. So that being Waller's like main reason for supporting this guy, obviously it's not the only reason. The reason why she actually supporting him, as we find out towards the end, is because she has dirt on him that she can use, and what we consider the real Amanda Waller comes out by the end, which is that she's got him, up against a wall, and she's like, hey, I've got incriminating photos here from a prostitute of your opponent doing something unsavory. You should use these and you'll win. And he doesn't want to. He's like, no, this is my redemption. I don't want to do that. I want to win this legitimately. I'm not going to use these cruel tactics. And Waller's like, hey, you have got your own dirty laundry. And not only that, I have been doctoring your books, so it looks like your wife's been siphoning money from the political like donations, and I've cooked them for months. They're iron tight. You're going to look so guilty. I will take you down. So here's what's going to happen. You're getting elected. You're going to go into Congress, and I'm going to be the one in your ear telling you what to do, what meetings to go to, what bills to help pass. It's the opening the door to power, and Waller's going to be the one walking through it. That's the way she puts it.
Yeah, and not only is it the door opening, she designs her door. She makes this all happen. That's why she's been working those late hours, right? She's put her mind to something. So we're seeing that drive that leads her essentially to, because this didn't have to be an absolute power tie-in, right? This could have just been an Amanda Waller origins type thing.
It still doesn't have to be, really. This could just work. Because, it even says on the cover, Waller Year One. And you could have sold it as that. But I think, would that sell as well? Or would it sell better as an absolute power tie-in?
Right. But you can see that this is where the woman that creates those Amazos that steal powers comes from.
Yeah,
right?
it's the start of that journey.
So, it ends up very, very nicely along that way.
Yeah. So, yeah, and, the coloring here and the art is a really good job. Like, particularly that scene where she's waiting for the congressman, or the potential councilman, I should say. And she tries to present him with this evidence, this smear material, whatever you want to call it. Everything's in shadows, everything's in these blue hues, everything's like, against the night sky. It's very shady, like we're making some kind of like dodgy deal.
Yeah, she's working in she's working in the shadows.
Yeah, it's Amanda Waller. It's what she does. So all of that does a really good job of like really selling you who this character is and that she is this deeply committed to this, to the point where she's basically neglecting her kids. I mean, she does go on a bit of a speech at one point about how the kids will never understand that I'm doing all this for them. But I almost feel like that by the end of this miniseries, there has to be a little bit of either hypocrisy or the realization that it's not about them anymore. Because Amanda Waller in present day DCU, has she ever talked about kids? I don't think she has.
I don't think she's ever talked about her family. I mean, we were shocked when it was revealed that one character was her nephew.
Yeah.
Right.
So my expectation here is that not that this is not some sort of mistake that is going to feel like a loose end by the end. If anything, I think this idea that she's so devout to this power hungry thing that she is going to just completely be disconnected from her kids by the end of the story, unless something bad happens to them, they're all just dead, which is also possible. Could be. I mean, because she does talk about how she's buried 2 kids already, and her husband. So. Yeah, maybe that is. It just keeps. They say that when you go for revenge, you dig 2 graves, and it definitely feels like she's just digging graves for everybody. Yeah. So that's that final page, that sinister page where it's the victory wave of the councilmen as they're winning the election, and Amanda Waller's just clapping the one. She's in the back, but she's the one that's actually in power, and we just get the close up of her eyes. And her narration kind of mirrors like Bruce, Batman's speech of like, I'm going to wage war on crime and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to spend the rest of my life. Whereas her ends with, I'm going to war with every single one of these, Fs. Yeah, it's censored, obviously. But you feel like this is a more maniacal, this is a more savvy kind of like, I don't know, mantra that she has. Like the character, like I felt like I was almost, and I'm sure there's more political things you could compare this to, like a House of Cards or something, but as I was reading this, I was like, this feels like a super sinister version of like Jimmy McGill, like just putting all the pieces into play for the con, so that when everything drops, she's got all the material at the ready and she's got the upper hand. So it shows that she's very shrewd. Yeah, and also we should mention that the reason the dirt she had on the councilman was that he had accepted money from the gang that was behind Candyman's gang or something like that. Yeah. So.
And so he basically would look the other way, because he was looking the other way because he was on the take. That's what led to she reckons that's what allowed her daughter to be assaulted and killed.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously, as with a lot of John Ridley comics, it's kind of prodding at a lot of real-world things. Something as simple as the cop suggesting, hey, what was your daughter hanging around with a man like that? But that first page clearly shows that, no, she was just a girl walking home, and this creep from an alleyway just sort of jumped her. Like, there was no hanging around with shady characters, but that's the assumption made by this white cop. Like, it's really hitting some of those beats along the way.
That's what I meant by that there's 2 justice systems, right? And even though... Amanda, they seem pretty like well-to-do on top of everything. On that too, that it does not matter because of how she looks. They're going to be treated differently, and she uses that as part of her fuel as well, right? Because she's pretty unassuming. She looks like she's just a mom when she gets into that, and she wants to volunteer. So, but very very interesting. I don't think that if this wasn't tied into absolute power, I might have skipped it. Just because I feel like, again, Waller's not one of those characters I necessarily need an origin to. She's kind of fully formed in the way that she is. So, but yeah, it was okay.
I think that's selling a little bit short. I think this was pretty good. I think, as far as tie-ins go, I think it's a really good tie-in because it feels like it's telling a full, complete story. I feel like this will probably stand relatively on its own alongside Absolute Power as it's done. I'm definitely more excited about reading this than I am reading about a lot of the other tie-ins that are coming out.
I mean, yeah, I don't have to, even after this week's Task Force 7 too, I'm kind of like, these feel very disposable. This doesn't feel disposable, so at least it has that going for it.
Yeah, it feels like it's it's doing its own thing, and the art's pretty good. Like I said, the coloring's really solid throughout. You know, it's a little bit flat in places. I wouldn't mind a little bit more expressive. What's the word I'm looking for? More acute expressions on the faces as opposed to some of the more broad things I think we maybe get in this art. But I don't think it's bad by any means.
But when it is good, like you said, that last page where it just pushes down on her eyes and it feels very sinister, it works really well there.
It's one of those art styles where I don't always love broadly what the drawing style is like, but I think the artist is very good at telling the sequential story with the art, right? Yeah. Choosing what to put in each panel, how to get certain feelings across, even if I don't always love the individual panels and go, oh, that looks like a great piece of art that I could put on the wall. It's always doing a really good job at actually telling the stories. So, which arguably is the more important of the two types of praise that you can levy on a comic. Obviously, it's great to have both, but I think it's got the sequential stuff down really, really well and helps tell the story considerably. Yeah. So, yeah, no, it's very good. Pleasantly surprised. I mean, I shouldn't have been really, because John Ridley's been pretty solid whenever he's been writing a book at DC. But it's the sort of thing where, you know, you take one look at a tie-in, you see it's going to be an origin story of Amanda Waller, and you're like, oh, do we need this? And that's going to up to anyone to decide for themselves, really. But ultimately, this told a compelling story. It sort of gave me this sense of her drive and how ruthless she was even at the start of her journey. So I'm down for issue 2. I'm actually kind of looking forward to the next one now.
So I didn't realize this was only 3 issues, so it kind of changes my thing too. If this was, you know, I thought this was going to run longer past Absolute Power. So that helps with the pacing as well.
Oh, that'd be wild if it went past the event.
Yeah, you never know sometimes with some of these, you know what I mean? Because we kind of know where she ends up, so I just feel like they can take it as long as, really, I guess, how detailed he wants to get into her origin. But yeah, 3 issues makes it a lot easier to try to keep up with.
All right, what are you rating it?
I'm gonna it's a 7.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an 8 out of 10. I think it's really solid, reads well. Whether or not you want an origin to Amanda Waller's a question you could ask for yourself, but I think this is a pretty compelling way of doing it. Do you need to read it for the event? No, obviously you don't. It's like the event will read just fine without it, but it feels, I'd say this is the sort of tie-in where it's like, okay, Waller's more on the brain, so now's a good time to tell a story about Amanda Waller, as opposed to, oh, it's a bunch of event stuff that's going to...
And you can do a lot worse than John Ridley writing it too. You know?
For sure. So, all right. Absolute Power Task Force 7, Issue 2, John Layman writing with Max Raynor on art. Now, I didn't read this, but... Wait, now, to be fair, I was going to... And then Matt said he wanted to start as early as possible. And I hadn't read it yet. So I was like, you know what? And this does not mean that I'm not going to read the others after this, because they're all basically one-shots, and the teams on the other issues were more interesting looking. So this is not me dropping out of all these Task Force 7 issues. I just didn't read this one.
Gotcha.
So, take it away.
So this one is, did Max Raynor do the Doom Patrol book that we liked?
Oh,
because it feels very in line with that, because this features the Doom Patrol and the Aquaman characters teaming up to take on that Amazo. So I'm seeing.
I'll look. You talk about the book, Matt. I'll look.
Yes. So so it starts off with Elastigirl waking up in a crater, basically, of herself with no powers, and we get a bit of a flashback that they showed up to help Tempest, and that Amazo attacked and stripped them of all their powers, except for, of course, Robot Man, who's essentially just, a robot, a brain in a robotic shell. And they realize that their powers are gone when Negative Man kind of unwraps his hand, and we see a human hand there that he's able to, hold that form. He can't send out his negative self. And so they end up seeing the Waller's broadcast about, how she's sending out these Amazos to take out these threats. Tempest is like, well, if she's taking out the threats, well, that means Atlantis is going to be in the crosshairs. And the Doom Patrol are like, well, I don't think Waller would go after a sovereign nation like that. But
Matt, just
now,
to answer your question,
yes,
no, Max Raynor did not do
he did not.
Doom
Okay,
Patrol. He did do Batman the Outsiders. He did a bunch of Tynion's Detective back in early Rebirth.
Okay.
But
How
yeah.
was Burnham that did? Anyway,
Burnham, yeah, Burnham sounds right. That sounds right.
Okay,
For Doom Patrol.
Burnham then. So this Amazo shows up in Atlantis, and it has all of the powers of the Doom Patrol. And so it is giant like Elastigirl, and then it is using Beast Girl's power to kind of rev up the sharks to attack the people there. And Aqualad Jackson ends up rounding up the King's Guard there to pull up a threat. And they have Aquaman already kind of wrapped up. And so this ends up becoming a fight with Tempest and the rest of them to end up inspiring the people of Atlantis to rise up against this Amazo. And to free the king, to free Arthur, who doesn't have any power since his were taken. So he's in this box, and if it breaks open or whatever, he doesn't have his Atlantean powers. So Tempest ends up going through. He takes the lead on a lot of it, and they manage to put up enough of a fight that the Amazo kind of depletes itself and shrinks down to regular size. And the Doom Patrol ends up getting Aquaman out of there because part of this is that if the Amazo just wants Aquaman and not the people of Atlantis, the best thing they can do is get him out of there. And so that's what they do. They end up taking the Doom Patrol and they start heading up to the Fortress of Solitude, where they're going to rendezvous with I guess the rest of the heroes. The art is easily the best part of this. It does feel like just a tie-in where we're doing action as a driver for a lot of things. So Max Raynor's art with the gigantic Amazo is really cool. It almost feels like a kaiju underwater at times. And then all of the Atlantean architecture and all that stuff looks really good. The Doom Patrol, it's always good to see them, especially this version that we've grown fond of. And yeah, so that's the main part of it. So I'll give this, about a 6.5, because at the end of the day, it feels very disposable, and there's nothing technically wrong with it, but it just is, a filler type story. But there is a backup where we're getting more of Steve Trevor in Commander Steel.
Shit, that story's continuing in the backup.
Yes, or Sergeant Steel. Is it Commander, Sergeant, whatever he is?
Sergeant Steel, I think.
Yeah, Sergeant Steel. So they're in the Supermax, and essentially he brings Steve down to this, prison where he has set him up a office. And he's like, well, this is going to only be a problem if you let it be, Trevor. And he wants him to, what does he say here? He gives him the assignment to work, knowing that Trevor's not going to do it. So it's essentially going to give him a reason to bring Trevor in line and essentially remove him from everything. And so Steele ends up backhanding him and knocking him out. And basically, he says at the end, I need a security detail to sub-basement 3. We have a new prisoner to transport to lockup. So Steve did what Steve was going to do, which was, not cooperate. And I feel like this is just a device to see who else is in lockup. We're going to get, Steve's, perspective there while the other heroes are out and about. He'll be in with the rest of the people that they're rounding up, which is curious too, considering that Steve doesn't have powers, yet they see him as a threat because of his connections to not only Diana, but the rest of the superheroes, and the U.S. government at that. So, this was a 2-3 page story at that. I don't know if it's fair to rate that, but yeah. So I guess the whole thing is about a 6.5.
Would you say it was better than last week's?
I really didn't like that Superman. I mean, that Superman one was, I feel about the same. Although this one is, I guess, a little bit better. Yes.
There wasn't a Superman one last week.
No, wait, that was the Task Force 7, wasn't it?
No, you're thinking of the Superman book, which was actually pretty good. The Task Force 7 book was, it was the Wonder Woman and the Shazam characters.
No, I thought that was Wonder Woman.
Oh, you're right. Okay, that was Wonder Woman. But Task Force 7 wasn't Superman, no. Task Force 7... No, Task Force 7 was the Shazam characters, but it was out the week before.
Okay. These are all running together now. I would put them at about even, so I wasn't here for that episode then. Because I didn't really put a designated number to that one. Actually, I'd put this one a little bit more, because I feel like I like the art in this one more. I think Raynor's art looked a little bit better. So... At least we're moving upwards.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks. I just assumed it was last week, but yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. There was the Shazam characters.
Yes. Okay. Why did I feel like it was Superman?
I don't know.
I feel yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. I mean, okay. I suppose the backups connecting is the one thing that makes this feel like an actual series as opposed to just a bunch of one shots, but we'll see how that goes in the coming weeks. But I'm definitely more interested in the regular issues of the books that are tying in and like the Origins miniseries.
I just not that filler can still be enjoyable, but it just feels like they're just telling the story. Hey, this is what's going on in Atlantis. This is what was going on with the Shazam family. I don't know what the next one, what set of heroes that one's around, but it does feel like these are almost like the old style Brave and the Bold, where we're getting team-ups between two different sets of heroes, right, to see how they interact and whatnot. So, again, Doom Patrol, Aquaman, how often do you get to see those two worlds interact that often? So I guess it's cool for that.
Next one's the Bat Family, by the looks of it, on the cover.
We've never seen them interact before.
I mean, whatever. Hey-ho. Yeah, okay. Shall move on then. Detective Comics 1087. Ram V writing, and of course Stefano, Rafaele, and Christian Duce on the art. So yeah, the city's burning. It's all falling apart. The Bat family are running around trying to stop the various asthma riddled people from causing chaos and hurting each other and whatnot.
And the masked guy that's he claims it's a revolution against the people, that have made Gotham like this with his asthma army. Yep.
So that's all playing. You got Nightwing making his big grand entrance and kind of clashing a little bit with Azrael. Cass has got a great entrance here as well. Sort of in silhouette, crouched down at the top of the rooftop. Moon behind her, very, very cool. And they're all sort of dealing with weird things. Batman's with 10-eyed man still kind of like, okay, wrapping up there.
What an odd couple. I would actually like to see more of these two together. Just Batman has no time for his shenanigans for 10-eyed man, but he needs them. So it's very much 48 hours, right?
That's all the setup of the book, and then the actual main sort of story of this issue is that the Wolf member of the team, who's
Tenclaw.
There you go, Tenclaw.
Yes.
I remember their names. Tenclaw is coming with a team to capture Montoya, and that's their goal. They're going to take her for part of their plan, and Montoya is refusing to just run away, but when she's forced to, when the other cops like, we have to go, let's run to, fight another day, she's like, okay, the roof's the best bet. So we get this big moment where she kind of embraces the, the idea of like working with Batman, symbolically by taking the big tarp off the signal, turning on the light, and we get the big shot of the bat signal in the sky, which is happening at the same time that Mr. Freeze is starting up his machine, which makes it snow in Gotham from the ground up, which is a hard thing to visualize, honestly. Like, even in the art, I'm like, it still looks like it's falling down to me, but you're not going to retrain that part of my brain. I don't think.
No, because snow comes from the sky. Snow doesn't come from the ground.
Very strange.
It makes for a really cool visual though, because so she fires up the bat signal as the snow is kind of creating this haze.
Yeah.
So it makes this bright white bat signal over the red sky, to show, with the fires and whatnot. So yeah. Also, Mr. Freeze, proclaiming winter roams once again, just felt very theatrical.
Oh, sure. I mean, I think the big thing with this issue, and I loved it a lot, I'll make that clear, I love this issue, it's a lot of the stuff paying off that we've been building up. So it's a very straightforward issue for the most part in terms of action. It's jumping around a lot of characters, but ultimately what's happening here is that Montoya is embracing asking Batman for help. A lot of the different villain elements of the city are coming out and like against the Arzens. And, obviously we've already talked about Mr. Freeze helping and being part of the plan. But then obviously here you've got the wolf, you've got Tenclaw grabbing Montoya, but Batman comes swooping in. There's a bit of a standoff where he injects Montoya with something to knock her out and dives off the roof with her. So there's a bit of a chase. But then who is it but Two-Face fires a silver bullet at Tenclaw and is like, oh, well, I'll be damned. The silver bullet, like the movies, actually worked.
Yeah, that was a great moment.
So he's like, I promised I wouldn't kill, but let's see how much silver you can take. But this frees up Batman to go and deal with Montoya, who's been thrown into the back of a van. So we get a whole chase sequence there. Like, I feel like a lot of this issue is really fun. The art's great, but for the most part, it's an action issue. But it's an action issue that's paying off, like, 4 arcs worth of build-up to get to this point where right from the very first arc, we were saying, part of this story seems to be how the city of Gotham and all of the darker elements within Gotham, that being the Rogues Gallery, will work with almost as a sort of living immune system or whatever for the city. So to actually see it all start to play out, where you've got all these different like villains popping up to help and basically just fight. Not even like they're kind of helping Batman, but it's more about fighting against this new force that's trying to take over than anything else.
They're fighting almost for the honor of Gotham. Like that's, it's our city. It's treated us wrong, but it's still ours. And, we'll do with what we want, not what you want.
Yeah, and I think one of my favorite things in this issue actually is seeing Mother Arzen say, this godforsaken city, the more I try to lift it from its filth, the deeper it sinks. Like the idea that she's starting to get pissed off because it's normally easier in this. Like that's the moments that I've been looking forward to, is this idea of when she realizes this was all futile, that she was never ever going to turn Gotham, because Gotham City is Gotham City, and everyone that's in it is so unique. We do get a glimpse of what they're using Scarecrow for. They've got him shaved, and they're basically like siphoning fear ideas from his brain or something. Yeah,
through which is also fueling the reality engine. That's how I took it, right?
Yeah, so it's going into the reality engine to scare the shit out of everyone.
A fearful society, afraid of its own shadow, is a compliant one. So the Orgums are like, well, they didn't accept the gentrification, right? That whole of Batman was a void, right? They felt his absence still. So we'll just make them scared, and then they'll listen that way. Well, and it seems like that has backfired on them.
It's an oversimplification, but yeah, they tried the carrot, so now they're going to try the stick, effectively. And Scarecrow was never plan A. This is something they've pivoted to because it wasn't working quite so well. And meanwhile, we get the other one, Niang, the one with the mask.
Yep.
He's actually looking for Mr. Freeze because they want to stop this, because basically they explain that the coldness of the city is actually like interfering with how the reality engine is affecting people. It's sort of blocking it in a sense.
And it's also slowing the Asmer down, because that was one of the things that Freeze found out, that the Asmers don't react well to cold.
So they go looking for Freeze in the tunnels of the city, and Freeze is like, hanging out in the shadows with his big red eyes, and he's got his freeze grenades and guns ready to take them on. So that's good fun there. And then
I love that he's playing hot and cold. So as they're getting closer, and he's like warmer, and it's just the shot with the two eyes, right? That panel, honestly, his two red eyes in the dark. It's so creepy.
That's the sort of thing where, like, I almost wish the comic had just one more page, so we could have had an extra page of just more, because it's over in 3 panels, right?
Yeah.
When I feel like you could have milked that for like a page and a half of like this team going through the icy tunnels and Freeze being this spooky big bad lurking in the shadows somewhere.
Been really cool.
Yeah. But no, it's a fun scene. Batman's rescuing Montoya from the van that he was chasing after, and he places on a rooftop, meets up with Catwoman, and they have a bit of a moment here where they talk a lot about how he's changed or whatever, and he's like, hey, when this is all over, and she's like, yeah, that'd be nice. Like, I do kind of like the idea that they don't even have to bother finishing the sentences. It's just kind of like, yeah, okay, I know where that sentence is going. Yeah, so
yeah. Well, I love their coyness too, because she's like, I see that you dressed for the occasion, So I was like, yeah, you're back to being Batman, but you also feel different, which I thought that was nice.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, the Masked Man, which is basically just resurrected.
Arson. Yeah. That's what we're thinking.
Yeah. He's on TV, right? And that's something they mentioned earlier, is that they sent Shavod, the eyed lady, to basically just keep an eye on the TV studio where all these announcements are coming from, because he's talking to the city. And the last page is him continuing to sort of monologue about the city and taking power and blah, blah, blah. And then just out of nowhere, a sickle comes flying in from out of frame and hits the head, the mask off. And then there's like an empty panel, so this is good pacing. It's got that sort of thing where you're waiting for like whoever it is. And then in walks Joker's daughter wearing the Leatherface style Joker like mask. And then she just says, we're sorry to interrupt your regular programming for this breaking news. And then the last panel is just her laughing at the camera. And that's the cliffhanger. I think what I like about this is that obviously the last couple of issues have been setting up how Two-Face might get involved, how Mr. Freeze might get involved. But we've had that subplot of Joker and Joker's daughter and him, however Joker's going to intervene. So it's kind of like hanging over this issue the entire time. So this final little cliffhanger of just being like, no. This is where they come in, or at least where she comes in. But obviously she's by proxy of the Joker.
Because we know that all the rogues that are working with Batman aren't going to kill. So when we see the Scythe come in and take this dude's head off, presumably, we're like, oh well, that's Joker's influence into this whole thing. But that's such a well-paced page as well, because he's talking and it almost sneaks up behind him, right? It's almost like the sickle has its own mind. Very, very good stuff out of Ram V. And
the way the background goes red for that one panel with the sound effect of the glitch. But then it's like, okay, now the lightings went neutral and it's the empty panel, and then Joker's daughter walks in, and then that last panel, the background turns a little bit green. It really gives this sense of like the tone changing in the panels as the events play out. Art's really, really good there. Honestly, it's one of these issues where I think this is a great issue. It's excellent, but it's definitely one that only works in the context of like all the build up to it. So I think when you're reading this through in collection form, this entire like arc is going to flow wonderfully. This here, I think this worked really well as a single issue monthly comic, because I think all the important beats I do remember very well, but it definitely doesn't do a lot to set anything up. It's just very much like, here's like all this stuff paying off now. So I would just say, I mean, not that I think anyone's going to jump in with this issue. It'd be a foolish thing to do, but just worth mentioning. So no, very good. I think the reason why I'm bringing that up is because obviously that's true of all comics with arcs, where you've got like the middle of an arc or whatever. It's just because I feel like more than most other arcs, this is just jumping around a lot of different characters, so you really have to have been like paying attention and kept up with all the different moving parts, all the people that are in the city. It's very, very good. So yeah, excellent stuff. And then the backup, which I'll be honest, if it wasn't for the fact that it said to be continued at the bottom of that Joker laughing page, or Joker's daughter laughing, I would have had a hard time telling initially, because it feels like it's just like more of the same night, and it kind of is. Obviously it's Francavilla though on art, which does stick out a little bit once you notice that. But this is basically all just building up to a joke. Azrael's like jumping down with his flaming sword to like get some bad guys in a car or whatever, and Dick throws his baton into his like face and is like, hey, right, you're not doing it like that. Batman might have like trusted you and like let you put that suit back on, although I don't like it. And Dick's not really fond of him, but he's like, no, I'm going down to save people. And then Cash jumps in, so we get some Cassandra Cain here as well. Art looks great in her. Francavilla is an artist that really suits himself to her, I think. Honestly, anytime there's fire, actually, now I'm looking at this page, anytime there's fire glowing in someone's face, that's when Francavilla is shining as an artist, because it really, really works.
The yellows, the orange, there's a glow to everything. Like, yeah, it looks real nice.
Yeah. So so Cass is helping Dick, and Asriel's getting someone else, and Dick's like, oh, we can't trust him, and Cass is like, trust him, and Dick's like, yeah, but he was born to kill, he was brainwashed to be an assassin, and then Cass just says, so was I, and it's like, oh shit, she just made a great point, and
Yeah.
you can't really fight with that, and sure enough, Asriel just uses his flaming sword to like cut open the top of a car or a truck, and pull out like this mum and her child that were trapped inside, and it's like, the Angel of Mercy has you, and he explains to Nightwing that, look, my whole mantra's changed. I'm now this Angel of Mercy. I'm not a being of vengeance. But he does throw in at the end here, but make no mistake, I'm only giving you 3 chances, and you lost 1 chance when you hit me in the head with that stick. So you've only got 2 left now, right? So we're not going to have a problem, are we? And then the final page is a full page spread of his stick hitting him in the head again with a big boink, sound effect.
Yeah.
Which really made me laugh. Do you know the thing is that this started off so self-serious almost, because it was all about, oh, I don't trust you, Asriel. And Dick's even almost a little bit more antsy than normal because he's being really kind of negative. And it was nice to see Cass kind of stick up for him a little bit. But all of it is building up to this joke where Dick's like, I don't care what your warnings are. I'll hit you in the head with my stick if I want to.
Yeah, I like that whole, because it's almost a 9x9, right? There's a top one on, there's 1 panel on the top, so there's only 7 panels, but just the way that flows with Francavilla's art, right?
Yes.
With the way that it has that in the center, it has all 3 of them. I just thought that was a nice panel there too. But the way that it tells the story with Asriel and Dick looking at each other, and he's like, look, second chances indeed, you struck me with your stick. And then it just jumps down to Nightwing looking just like arms folded, like he doesn't care. That really sells that joke. Like, I didn't actually think he was going to bonk him again. So when he does do it, it's real funny.
And to be fair, they set up the sound effect even, because when he says you struck me with your stick, Dick says, barely, I bonked you at worst. So that actually sets up the word bonk, so it's really funny when you get to that last page.
Yes.
Not that I think the book needed levity. Like, it wasn't like I was reading the main story going, oh, I wish this had some lighthearted stuff in it. I'm glad it doesn't. But this being a nice little separate thing at the end, just to sell the characters of Cass, Nightwing, and Asriel, who all get to shine in different ways. Dick, you get his personality with the ending joke. Cass, you get her kind of like wanting to trust Asriel and sort of sticking up for him. And then Asriel, you get obviously him with his flaming sword, sort of saying how he's changed and whatnot.
And Dan Waters has done Asriel, right? There's that whole book.
Yes.
That he did Asriel, so we're kind of used to that. So this makes me excited for him taking over Nightwing, just because if it's going to be something similar to this.
Do you know, I never even thought of that as I was reading it. You're right. Dan Waters is taking over Nightwing.
It seems like he has Nightwing's tone down, Pat. Just, and it helps that Francavilla is such a great artist, and I'm sure his artist on Nightwing will be just as well. Yeah. But, the jokey nature of Dick Grayson very much came through. So, I think it's going to be in very good hands.
Yeah, but a little bratty as well, which he can be at times. I mean, I wouldn't say Taylor's done much of that, but when I think of New Teen Titans Dick Grayson, I definitely think of someone who's a little bit whiny, but then has this other side to him as well, obviously, that we're all used to. So, yeah, very good.
Yeah, very, very, very good.
Yeah, so great main story, great backup, really no complaints. I like that the backup as well is just set during the night, because it's very chaotic, so you can easily just go to a couple of characters who showed up in the main book but weren't as focused on, and just do a little bit more with them. I actually kind of like that as a backup idea. What are you giving the book, Matt?
I'm at 8.5.
I got you 9. I think it's okay. I think it's an excellent issue of this art. I think everything's starting to feel like it's paying off, and I just I was super engrossed the entire time because everything matters. So excellent stuff. All right, The Flash, issue 11, legacy number 811. Cy Spurrier writing with Ramon Perez on the art, and Matt's been solo on this for a while. And I just want to point out as well that I did see Matt tweet this week that he had no idea what happened in The Flash. So, good luck.
I've become the Job meme, where I've made a huge mistake.
Matt, you can drop it. It's fine.
Yeah, I know. I hate the sunk cost fallacy. Because
It's only been 11 issues.
yeah, and an annual, and probably a special. Anyways, I'll get to the thing that I liked in this. Right, so the story is ongoing, but it's the archangels talking to Wally.
I remember it being archangels, Matt.
Archangels, sorry. They're drawn like the biblical angels. Right. Anyways, so the archangels are talking to Wally, and essentially, from what I gather, if I understand what Spurrier is putting down, is that the Speed Force is time given another dimension, right? So not only do the Flashes move fast, but being that they can jump multiverses, timelines, all this other stuff, they are messing with time. And when they mess with time, it messes up what the archangels want to do, which, as they see as time as a poison, essentially. So what do you got to do? You got to bleed out the poison that they need to kill time so they can reset and they can observe everything from the beginning.
You know what I'm realizing as I'm hearing you say this is that
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to a Flash again, where the writer isn't obsessed with reinventing the rules of the Speed Force and how it manipulates things. I just want a Flash where they're just a Flash. They have connections to the Speed Force, and then that's all they ever talk about as far as Speed Force goes. And it's just about dealing with the problems that are presented to them via the villains or whatever's going on in Earth.
I believe your phrase is Speed Force, bro. I don't need to explain.
Yes.
I feel I miss it when it's there. I'm fine with it just being this force that binds the Flash family. It's a thing they have in common.
It's one thing to use it as a crutch so you don't have to explain something. It's another thing when you've got a run like this, and this is kind of partly why I dropped it, is the entire plot is revolving around how it's been manipulated by these other beings and how it's this different dimension or the way time's wonky with it or some shit.
And so the Stillness, which were those figures, those explorers that we saw early on, right? They were the Archangel's first attempt to kill the Speed Force and to kill time. Because once they saw that it was starting to go off and create branch realities and all this other, it became too big. So they introduced the Stillness, which is the concept of standing still, I guess, of non-movement, if you will. And so one side of the story is Wally going through this essentially drug trip with the Archangels, and they're basically telling him
that's what this book needed. Some psychedelic segments.
And that he's essentially nothing. They need him to be an empty vessel because he's going to be the bullet that kills time. And the other part of the story is the Flash family with the older Wade in the offset with the time cops, essentially. Them being like, we need to get to Wally because Wally is the key to this because he's who brings us all together. And so there is this really nice moment with all of them, right? It's Jay, it's Barry, it's Wallace, and Bart, and all these guys being like, we need Wally back. And so for all the stuff that the Archangels are telling Wally, that he is nothing, he's just this empty vessel, it's like, well, no, they missed their family member, which I thought was really nice. And then it's that Stillness character who was introduced in one of those events. But he is the tie to the Speed Force. He was in the theater and all that other stuff. Points out that the Flash family is looking at stuff at binary as like fast and still when it's not that they're all different dots on the same spectrum. And that through that's how they're going to be able to get through to Wally. And the art takes a turn here where as Wally starts running to the point where the Archangels want him to, it almost looks like Riley Rosmo art. But he starts to get elongated, almost like in 2001 when they go through, the void and whatnot. It starts pulling, at him, and all that stuff. And as he's heading towards that, we get Max Mercury talking about like he had a vision, and this vision was this buffalo, and that he takes that's what the Speed Force is. It's just this living entity. and this living entity looks like it has hunters surrounding it. I'm taking that those are the archangels, right? And that the speedsters, even though they're using time and the speed force and all this stuff to its detriment, it likes being able to interact with them. They're almost like parasites that it can experience, because through them it can experience emotion, and it can feel things. And again, that's why Wally has become this crux figure, is that he feels all of this more because he is so central. And so through the end, the Flash family goes and finds all the villains that are operating, keeping Wally on his own as Wally starts running for this end of time. And the issue ends up with Linda basically saying, like, she'll always be there, for Wally, because essentially he's her constant and she's his constant. And then it ends with Wally stopping right before this point, to be continued. So again, that's what I think happened. I'm not 100% sure. That's me thinking about it since Wednesday when I read it. The part of it that I did like was when Max Mercury, of all the characters, right, he's the deeply philosophical one that looks at the Speed Force more like a religion than anything, that he sees it as this buffalo that is trying to coexist with the speedsters, essentially acting as parasites. But in a perfect parasitic relationship, right, the parasite doesn't kill its host, so they're both bringing something to the symbiotic here, and then instead of parasites, they are more like symbiotes, and that they're getting stuff from each other. So that's what I did like. The deep philosophical cosmic horror aspect of this, with the stillness reaching into Wally's brain and trying to form this empty vessel to turn it into a bullet to kill time. Again, it's a lot, man. So this is probably my last issue of Flash, because I don't know if I can do this again. I again, sunk costs and all of that stuff. I want to know where this goes, just out of deep curiosity.
I mean, you've got.
I don't know if I can talk about it by myself, though. This is a heavy lift.
Well, I'm not jumping back in. I'll tell you that.
I know
right
you're
now.
not.
Besides, you've also got like 10 new books launching between October and November at this point.
True.
So.
True. I just like you said earlier, I miss when the Flash book was a little bit more simple, right?
I mean, I think a lot of writers are guilty of doing it a bit much. But even ones that I've liked have been guilty of doing it a bit much. Williamson definitely went into that, with all the different forces in a really annoying way. I think this, though, it just kept getting more and more complex. Instead of being wrapped up by the end of the first arc so we could do something else, it was like, no. This is a long-running story.
The concept of this cosmic horror type being, this entity wanting to use Wally, is something that I understand. I understand how that story would work. I just don't like the execution of it. And again, it gets deep into all these terms that I have to dig deep to remember. The archangels and the stillness and what they represent and all of this other stuff. And it's a lot. And I just, but when it hits, Spurrier is really good at playing with those emotions and seeing the Flash family coalesce around the idea of Wally not being there and why he matters so much. He hits there. Also, you brought up the Sage and the Strength Force. They bring those up a little bit too when they're talking about the Spectrum. But I put that out of my brain because I don't want to think about those ever again. But yeah, I don't know if I can keep doing this solo, because it's heavy to try to take care of all this while it goes. So that's it. The art, though, does a lot of fun things with the way, kind of the psychedelic nature of the Archangels and Wally. You put that against the more normal style art of the Flash family in the Time Cop, station, essentially. That's a real good balance. So because of that balance, and even though I don't exactly understand all that I just told you, I'm going to give this a 7.5.
Okay. All right. What does that take us on to? Zatanna, Bring Down the House, issue 2, Mariko Tamaki with Javier Rodríguez on the art. So, yeah, we quite enjoyed issue 1 of this. It had a big cliffhanger where this demon thing attacked on stage at the end. We're still doing the flashbacks though, where we are continuing this. Zatanna made this boy disappear, and this flashback here starts with like her father coming to her room. And I will say, I love how they're presenting Zatanna in these flashbacks, where he's in shadow and silhouette, and it really makes him feel like he was less of a father figure and more of this like presence in our life that wasn't this loving, caring thing,
and this is her perspective, right? We're seeing stuff from her perspective, so we're not quite sure why. And I feel there's going to be a big reveal about why we're seeing Zatanna like this. But yeah, I love it because you never see his face. He takes up a lot of space, like his coat. It's almost like Doctor Strange's cape. It seems to have a mind of its own, taking up, and because that's what she's perceiving, right? That her dad is this larger than life character.
Yeah, and they go out to the forest where the boy disappeared, and he's like, "Hey, you have to do exactly what I say," and it sort of leaves it there, and we come back to sort of to it a little bit later as it intercuts into the story. But he puts a blindfold on her, and is going to give her instructions. But we come back to the present day. We come back to basically 2 old ladies out in the strip just watching this hotel and stage place, this theater burn down. There's like firefighters out trying to fight the fire. Inside though, the stranger, who's I guess is what we're calling this other magician character, is fighting the demon, and she's basically saying, "Hey, Zatanna, you have to help me fight this." And Zatanna's like, "But I don't do magic. I only do tricks." Did I make a joke in the last episode about a trick is something a whore does for money?
Tricks. Yes.
And also candy, if you get caught saying that in front of kids. Okay. I can't say the word tricks without thinking of that line from Arrested Development, goddammit.
Gotcha. But I like this too because she's so fearful, and I don't do magic. She feels like a little kid. Right?
Yeah.
It's almost like this is just inherently part of her. She's like, no, I'm a stage magician, and it's almost like this is stirring up those memories of her dad.
It's I think what I like here about the coloring is that obviously all these like seats in the theater are on fire, but the stranger's all in blue light as if it's magic light emanating, and then the demon's all in purple. It really sort of paints this idea that they are not quite of this world in some way, and whereas Zatanna right now has just got the glow of the fire on her in these pages, like a 2-page layout here that I'm looking at.
She's very, very human in a world that's not, almost.
And then the stranger sort of like transforms her clothes into what her actual costume is, I guess, and she's got hair that's very how to describe this? It
looks very like, I don't watch Dragon Ball Z, but I'm familiar. It's very Super Saiyan-esque.
Sure. Well, it was a couple of pages actually later when I was thinking she was giving me almost, and this is just the hair, right? Let me make that clear. Almost a little bit Wolverine. It was when I think it's because like she has this thing in the art where I don't know if it's her hair or like, I guess it is because it's connected to her hair, but there's like her forehead and just like it's almost like she's got a cowl on like Batman, right? But it's like part of her hair. It's a weird thing to think about.
It's kind of like Clarion. Now that you mention it, you know how Clarion's hair, the Witch Boy,
a little bit,
how it kind of drips down like his bangs, take up his full forehead, and then you see the rest of it come through. It's very similar to that.
But I think because it connects to like her eyes and like there's a cowl looking effect, it made me think of Wolverine with the spiky hair at the back. Even though Wolverine splits in two, obviously, and hers doesn't. But I get the Super Saiyan thing. Well, I would never have made that comparison because I've never seen an episode of that show because I'm an adult. But
either have I. I just know it from pop culture, you know.
Yeah, and I'm trying to piss people off with that. Right? Don't at me, people. Okay. I'm poking the bears. I also like
that this stranger character is also very angular, like her hair, like the way that the artist draws her. She's always like her feet there when she jumps into action, where she says, "Love this for me." Her legs are at all a bunch of different angles. Like she's very, you know, almost. I don't want to call her like a weapon, but she seems like a weapon.
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to what I was saying about her standing out and feeling like she's not part of this world, because everything else is like, you know, just orange and red from the fire, and she's just got this bright glow emanating light coming from her.
Cool. A cool blue and the heat of, you know, oranges.
The panel made me think of Wolverine, though, was where she sort of leans right into Zatanna's face, right? and they're like, and they drop the speech bubbles, and it's just like the plain text with the lines coming from their mouth, and it's like, I don't like you, same, I hate this, same. I just, for some reason, like, I was like, same, like I was getting like a Wolverine like tone.
Hey, Tamaki did write Laura, right?
That's true.
In Wolverine,
That's
so
true.
Maybe she's tapping into that aspect. But no, I definitely get that.
Yeah, I know. It was giving me some vibes. But she's like, okay, we have to go somewhere. You're coming with me. Zatanna's not very happy about it. So it's a very, a lot of animosity.
Yep.
Between them right here. But she draws a portal and takes her through to the Palace of Casters, which she says is only 10 minutes away. I'd love to know on what plane of existence she means when she says 10 minutes away. But
she says 10 miles.
Oh, 10 miles, sorry. 10 miles. Well, same difference.
Also, it's curious, too, that when we see her use magic, she's doing the backwards talking that we're used to Zatanna doing.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah. She's doing exactly what Zatanna normally does.
Yes, so which I think is curious, but yes. So we get to the portal, or the Palace of Casters, which very much looks like, to me, it kind of looks like renditions of the Fortress of Solitude. You have these big statues,
I mean,
instead of a bunch of... Go ahead.
I was going to say, no, it looks more like Picasso vomited onto like a blueprint somewhere.
Well, I was going to say that, but instead of like Kryptonian crystals, it's almost like Fate's Tower. It's almost like you took the Fortress of Solitude and Fate's Tower and smashed them together. There's a lot of odd angles, a lot of. It doesn't make sense when you look at it. So I guess that's where the Picasso. I get where you're saying that comes from too.
Well, not even just the angles of the stairs and the walkway. I'm thinking even like the hand and the face coming out of the pool or whatever it is on the side. That's very Picasso to me. I don't think there's any correlations to Fortress of Solitude. I just think you're such a Superman nerd that you see statues in a building and you immediately think Fortress of Solitude.
And the weird angles on everything too, right? It's kind of Crystal-esque. So that's just what I saw it as.
Yeah, but I wouldn't describe the fortress as having weird angles. Like they're very they're in a very simple pattern, right? You can always expect them to go a certain way. They're always crossing.
And these aren't. These are going in different directions and all that stuff. So
this is more erratic, hence the Picasso comparison. But yeah, so basically we find out here that the stranger didn't think that Zatanna, who she refers to as Top Hat, would be very useful, right? And she obviously, even the way she says, "Oh, the demon appeared during her show," like she sort of emphasizes that, like, "Oh, she's a staged magician," kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, this woman, the leader of the the casters, she is basically, she's given Zatanna a lot of shit for saying it's her fault even that this is happening now. And insinuates that she's to blame for her father's disappearance, and this is where it starts intercutting with the flashback. And it seems like whenever Zatanna put the blindfold around her and had her say some magic words, some beams of light came from Zatanna, and then her father was nowhere to be found. And then there's like panels of her sitting in a police station, and this implied she was into foster care and things like that. But it does seem like Zatanna has like some extreme level of power that she's not aware of, that it's like stronger than anyone else or something like that. But Zatanna's like, look, I've tried to use magic since he disappeared, but my connection to the magic world has been gone ever since he died. I have not achieved a goddamn thing magically since that day. So it's really painting this picture. And we also get these panels of like this sort of elder caster lady watching from the shadows, like when she's going to school one day, the idea that they've been keeping an eye on her all these years and watching what she's been doing.
Now, do you think that's because she's responsible for her dad's death, or because she is this, natural conduit of, magical energy?
I think both can be true. I would suggest it's more about her power level, and that they think that her father's gone because something backfired because she is so powerful, but rather than they think, oh, she did it intentionally and now they have to keep an eye on her because she's suspicious or something.
Right. Well, it seems to me like too that they need to keep an eye because maybe something else was acting, and trying to use her, and maybe that's why she doesn't do magic anymore. Yeah,
because she explains that a demon is the result of magic that's unchecked and it's in chaos. And it kind of suggests maybe, there's an inner magic to Zatanna that she's not really aware of, that she's not controlling in any way. You know, yeah, she even like makes fun of the old lady when she sort of does a card trick and pulls out the card and says "ta-da."
Out from behind her ear, which I
Yes.
thought was so funny because that's Michael Scott level stuff.
Well, she's obviously doing it to make a point, and the old lady does not look happy. She looks very, very miserable. But the stranger says, "Look, I'll just get her back to her shitty condo, and this can all be done." Blah blah blah, and just shoves her out of the portal and says, "Nope, never going to see you again. Bye bye." But the cliffhanger here is that Zatanna's like, "Why is there people cooking? Why is there something on the stove in my apartment?" And she's like getting ready to, come after something. Someone's making carrot soup specifically.
Yeah.
And she comes into the main room, and we're greeted with Bunny Girl.
A bunny lady. Yeah, she's sitting there. She has big bunny teeth. She's holding some of Zatanna's bunnies.
Yeah,
these big bunny ears coming out of the top of her head.
Yeah, I would say the ears might. I mean, even the teeth might not be real. I suppose they could, but
yeah.
I mean, the ears could just be a headband with some bunny ears on them. I mean, for all I know,
they could be.
But she is making carrot soup. But is that for her? Or is that for the? Is that for the bunnies? Do the bunnies like carrot soup?
The bunnies seem to be like at ease with her, right? Yeah. Like they're not troubled by her, but yeah, she says that
if this is an obscure DC character that we just don't know, then I can't wait to find out, but I certainly have no idea.
It's definitely not White Rabbit because they're not in Gotham, right? No. So we can rule out White Rabbit. But it also made me think of Hoppy and how much Hoppy loves, the different food.
I don't think we're doing a Hoppy connection here.
No, I don't either, but it just, that's what it kind of reminded me of. Usually on League of Comic Geeks, they list some of the characters that pop up, and there's nothing on this one.
Something filled in yet. Yeah. So the other important thing here is that the only thing she really says is that the casters are lying. So it's like, okay, seed of doubt, what they're lying about exactly, where's that going? But then she also says, and so are you, which makes me think that either Zatanna has lied about using magic since then, and this is more like she's scared to use it, so she never will kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or does she not know she's lying? Maybe she did a spell on herself to never use magic or something like that. Like maybe that's what's going on here, or she's given herself amnesia for something specific. She's made herself forget.
Something might have backfired when she was looking for her dad.
Yes.
And all this other stuff. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. No, I mean, I enjoyed this issue again. I think all the action stuff early on is good fun. It flowed really well. The use of colors was especially really good. I kind of glossed over it, but I really liked the effect when the stranger opened the portal to take her to the Caster's Palace. I really liked this. They did this kind of like harsh like light on them as they walked through the door, as if they were stepping it into like sort of like unbelievably bright sunlight. And effectively all it is in terms of art is that it's basically, not only is it not colored, it's also kind of like de-emphasized with the inks, right? They've made it just like a light blue ink as opposed to anything else. But it has this effect, especially in the second part of it, where it's sort of like lifting, so the bottom half of them is in full color, but the top half still in this harsh, bright light. So you can it creates the impression of a light lifting or a door or window closing to sort of like block this incredible light. I just thought that was a really nice nice effect.
a lot of the stuff that Rodríguez is doing with the light too, because you get to those panels of Zatara and Zatanna in the past, and just the way that the light cuts at different angles, and the way that it lays over the shadows.
Yeah, because you've got like when he's putting the blindfold on, she's dropped the torch or the flashlight, so you've got this harsh just beam of light in the bottom of the panel. Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there.
So just the way that it's playing with light and whatnot too here, which I think was also indicative of the book and magic, because the casters bring up that Zatanna is, essentially how I took it is she's almost emanating chaos magic, and if they're all about order, that would be, light, dark, all this other type of stuff.
Also, I think see when it goes back to her apartment, I think you almost forget how muted the colors are and all that Caster Palace stuff. Because even the flashback colors are also muted, and that's been like a consistent thing as well. But when you go back to the apartment and it goes back to the regular colors, like, oh shit, it's so vibrant because we've been all those muted colors.
Yeah, purples and oranges. Like the smell of the carrot soup is this orange cloud drifting around the apartment, and it really sticks out. So then when you see the bunny girl in her green hair and orange and black socks and whatever, she stands out even more than the casters do, who are all very, like you said, muted and drab.
She's very, very colorful. Yes, very colorful. Yeah, and even like behind her, you've got almost the panel split because it's the curtains I think that are making this, but it's basically half red and half blue behind her. Which I don't know if that's might even be like a subtle little thing of like which side is she on kind of thing. Like, is she a good guy? Is she a bad guy? Who knows? But it says next time down the rabbit hole, so things are going to get weirder, presumably. I think what I like about this book is that it's doing a good job of feeling like it's really setting up this backstory with Zatanna and her dad, and kind of like sort of peeling back at it. Now that we've had 2 issues and seeing how that's kind of flowing, because I expect there's going to be more. I fully expect that every issue will have some flashbacks to the next part of her childhood, and kind of explore. Maybe building up to something that she has forgotten because she made herself forget with magic or something. But, is this a Zatanna that did work with some of the Justice League already? Is it a Zatanna who's on her own world? Because I'm thinking about being Super with Supergirl, and we said the entire time, this is a Supergirl where Superman doesn't exist. But then the little twist at the end is that, no, he does. She goes and sees him at the end, and that was like a big thing. So I wonder if this is like a Zatanna who's forgotten that she's ever worked with any other superheroes.
Right. And why would that happen? What has happened to make her forget? The mystery's intriguing so far. Art's fantastic. The way it's telling the story, the colors are very good. And it's funny at times as well. I like some of the banter she had with the stranger, or even with the old lady. So it's driving me nuts. The stranger reminds me of a character, and I can't put my finger on it. So maybe that's the point. It's supposed to be a little bit outside, reminiscent of a bunch of different magical characters in DC, but yeah, a lot of good stuff, man.
Not Gary Busey's character in Under Siege?
No, definitely not that.
Just thought I'd check. All right, what are you rating Zatanna bringing down the house?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I think I'm there with the 8.5. I think it's very good. Excited for the next issue. So cool. Power Girl, issue 11. Leah Williams writing with Adriana Melo on the art. You again, Matt. This is one of those weeks where you've got 3 books to yourself. Although you've dropped Flash now, though, so that's one less on the table.
Good. Yeah, so this issue of Power Girl picks up after Brainiac War, and Paige is just trying to relax, and she's going to go on a date with that guy that she had met, way back before this started tying into every other event. His name's Axel. And so Omen's trying to sleep, and Omen wakes up, and Paige is hovering over her bed, and she's like, what is wrong with you? And she's like, well, I can't sleep. I am nervous because I have a date. And so Omen ends up talking to her, and she brings up the time that they went camping, which leads to a real fun thing where they're paddleboarding on this picturesque lake, and Paige used her powers to teleport to knock Omen off of her board. And she's like, you just got to remember to have fun, right? You're overthinking everything, and when you overthink, you kind of become like a super jerk. And she's like, well, how? But that's what I do. I overthink everything. Like, where am I at with, where's my place? And it really gets back to that, where Paige has kind of regressed into where's her place within the super family and Metropolis and all this other stuff. And she finally annoys Omen enough that Omen threatens to psychically suplex her through the wall, which leads to Kara asking what exactly Paige asking what a suplex is, and they end up watching wrestling, which I think is funny. Melo's art here is really good, where it looks like RIdley giving a suplex. So I wonder if that was the what's the word I'm looking for? The inspiration here. So they go to bed. They go back to bed, and this Axel guy starts texting Paige, and he wants to know, ideas for the date. So they agree to go to aquarium because Paige really likes fish, and So she wakes up. She realizes that she's late because she stayed up talking with Omen the whole time. Really spooks Streaky. Ends up that you find out that she's late for a meeting with Lois. And Lois is like, hey, I know I've been having you write this this column, but, you know, I feel like your heart's not been in it. And I feel like this is kind of a meta commentary from Leah Williams. She's like, well, when am I supposed to be able to have time to do all of this, right? There was the Brainiac stuff, and then there was, she talks about other things that have happened. She's like, but I haven't missed a single deadline. And Lois is like, yeah, but I feel like you'd be better for us in the field. Kind of trying to give her an out without, and Paige brings up to her, it's like, I created this whole new identity to be your columnist, and you're taking that away. And, Lois ends up giving her this field talk about, with your powers, you can kind of go and do and go investigate better than most. And, we need that. You can do real good. So Paige agrees to think about it. And it goes to her date with this Axel guy, and they're both very awkward. Like the art here and Leah Williams do this really good job of showing how nervous Paige is. So we've seen her through this book go to these, go to the storybook realm and fight, Zarnians, and she handles everything fine. But these little interpersonal stuff is not what she's good at. So she ends up just giving Axel these really weird facts about fishes and about, how some only 3 to 5% of fish has, as she says, willies. And she gets into how fish procreate, and Axel he doesn't look horrified, but he almost looks like
Wait, so willies actually as in penis?
Yes.
Okay.
And so,
I mean, that's a really common word for penis here. I'm just surprised to hear it in an American comic book.
Yes. And so she gets talking about different fish genitalia and how they spawn and whatnot. And Axel's kind of like, yeah, so how was your day? And they end up, interrupting each other. And it's real cute. She opens up, says that she got fired. They pet some stingrays. And Axel's like, you could come work with me. And she's like, I have no interest in working for the CIA. And, he's like, yeah, but, if Lois thinks that that's where you belong is in the field, then who am I to disagree? Like, we could use you. And as they're talking, they kind of have a split, and there's this really nice piece in the art where they both go silent, and they're sitting in front of this aquarium, and they were holding hands, and now they're not, and there's just this big space between them, sitting on this bench with a bunch of fish in front of them. So it really, really sets the tone of everything. And Paige admits that she doesn't want to be away from everything. She likes this life that she's built, and that she's afraid of alienating herself yet again. As they're talking and laughing about more fish facts, because Axel tries to bring the conversation back down to a lighter level. This lady shows up who claims to be Aquas, and she's there to free her brethren. So she's there to free all the fish from the aquarium. So Paige disappears. She says, I'll be right back, but so does Axel. And they both show up in their super suit. So she's wearing her new Power Girl costume. He's dressed almost like a 1930s adventurer. Like, he has this tan vest on. He has a bunch of belts and bandoliers with pouches and pockets. And they get into an argument about, wait, so you were lying about who you were? And he points out, just like, well, you never said you were Power Girl. And because she's like, well, why would that matter? He's like, because Power Girl's hot. And she gets really upset. And then he goes to explain, he's like, well, that's not, because take it with the spirit of which it's intended. When you're Paige, you're completely different, right? So this is also getting off what she was talking to Lois and Omen about, was she's really only comfortable as Power Girl, right? That's who she can fully be her real self with. and he materializes this knife out of nowhere, and as he does that, Natasha Steele comes in, Natasha Irons, to help save the day.
That was a really confusing way of saying that.
Yes, sorry.
Yes, Natasha Irons is her name.
Irons,
yes,
right, but she's also Steele, right?
She's not. She's a Steele, yes, but she's not
she's
Natasha Steele because that sounds like
that'd
someone
be a different name. Yes. So, anyways, he brings up that he has a stress response to activate ancient magical artifacts, and then also tells her, I never said that I worked with the CIA. You just assumed that. I just never corrected you. And they start arguing again, and as they're arguing, Natasha ends up wrapping up this Aquas character to where now Paige brings up that he set her up, and she starts crying because, again, she feels like she can't be her true self around everybody. Everyone has ulterior motives. And he goes, well, no, I didn't. You're just projecting. I didn't set you up. Why don't you come with me and I'll show you? Because there's been a big miscommunication. And as he says this, he forms this portal, and he grabs her hand to pull her through, and she goes, where are we going? And he goes, where I'm from, Asgard. So somehow this is tying into Norse mythology with this guy named Axel who can materialize ancient weapons. So yeah, a lot different from the last tie-in stuff that we were getting, where it almost felt like this book only existed to push into other things that were going on. It feels here now that Leah Williams is back telling a story that's self-contained, and it's much better for it. So, and the fact that we're getting back to her, I know it would seem very redundant that it keeps going on about how she feels like she doesn't belong, but, being that she is a Supergirl from a different, multiverse, or from a different universe and whatnot, she still has a long way to go where she can actually be comfortable with herself. And it's good that she has these supporting casts, whether it's Omen or Lois or this Axel guy, that is allowing her to be herself. She doesn't have to pretend to be someone that she's not. And, she's slowly getting to there. So if that's where we get by the end of Leah Williams' run, that Paige can finally be comfortable being Paige Stetler and not Kara from another Earth, I think will be in really good hands. So the art here by Melo isn't Melo's best. There's some wonky breakdowns that goes on, but it makes up for it with a lot of these good expressions, like when Paige starts crying or when she gets really upset about, him setting her up. That's where the art really shows through. Not so much in the action scenes, which is good because it's not action heavy. But again, the page in front of the aquarium where it shows just how far apart they are, I thought was really good. So yeah, so pretty enjoyable issue. I will give this a 8.
Okay. Next up, The Nice House by the Sea, issue 1, James Tynion the 4th, with Álvaro Martinez Bueno on the art. All right, so
what a jump back into this world.
It's so funny because I was starting this and I was thinking, oh, it's been a while since Nice House by the Lake ended. Like how much am I going to struggle with this? And obviously, once you start this issue and you realize, okay, it's setting up another house, right, that is literally by the sea, and it's setting up a whole new cast of 12 characters. And one of the things that I was going through my head, obviously it becomes a bit clearer later in the issue, but I was like, okay, this is another house, but it's not Walter who set this one up. It's someone else named Max who seems to have the same abilities, right? So what's the context for that? Is this like, are these houses happening at the same time? And the ending seems to imply they are, but like a lot of questions were running through my head trying to like piece together exactly what the context for this house versus the house from the original book were. What's going on with these aliens or whatever they are, that's Walter and Max, and going from there. It
feels very much like when you're introduced to the tailies on Lost, where you're like, oh, there was something else completely going on in this part of the island, while we were so focused on our castaways.
A little bit, yeah.
And so, because Tynion throws you into their world really quick. We get a very familiar opening that kind of opened like the first issue of Nice House by the Lake. But then it kind of gets established to who some of these characters are and how familiar they are with each other. So it throws you into the world right away, but you don't get lost because he does such a good job at kind of explaining who these characters are through dialogue and kind of what they're about. So yeah. Very happy introduction here.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't do the thing that Nice House by the Lake did where there's like this vision of the future where things are going to go eventually. And obviously that was a lingering question I had in my head as I was reading this as well. Is that, well, there was definitely a future to get to in Nice House by the Lake. Is this going to in any way link up to that? And obviously by the end of this issue it does. Like the ending cliffhanger is a big connection to that book. But as I was reading this, I'm like, okay, right, we're establishing these new characters. We're establishing that Max met these various people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what was sticking out to me more about this house and the 12 people involved is a few things. First of all, I'm just looking at that. There's like the third page after the first little flashback where the actor is like just imagining all the skulls on fire and whatnot of like the end of the world. It's just, I don't know, really good Terminator-esque stuff. But what I liked about that, or what I was noticing about this, I should say, is it was introducing all these characters, is that they all seem a lot more like successful than the characters that were in Nice House by the Lake. And what I mean by that is that the actor is literally a Tony Award-winning actor. And then there's like an artist who's won awards. Then there's like a scientist or a mathematician who's won awards for teaching. There's a professor who's won all sorts of Nobel Prize awards. Like everyone seems to be like the best of the best that you could probably do.
It's almost like if you're building a bunker to rebuild society, these are the type of people that you would want versus the people from Nice House where they were very similar. There was a scientist and a teacher and all this other stuff, but they were regular people. They weren't these people with all these like acclaim behind them.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know? And I think what's interesting about that though is that clearly filling out a lot of the roles, there seems to be a similar goal in filling out the house in terms of, okay, this is the type of people we want.
Yep.
But across the board, everyone here seems to be a much higher profile person in the world they come from. And I think, I guess what the question I'm getting at with that is that by design? Well, I think it's by design, but is it by design because there's a different goal with this house? Or is it more the idea that, and it's implied later on, that like there'll be a winning house, right? That's something that Walter says in a flashback later, that another house will win, which suggests that there's different aliens, but each having their own house with their own 12 guests, and one's going to win somehow. How do they win? Who the hell knows? But that's another thing to get into. But what? Because if it isn't a sort of, if it wasn't like, oh, Max, whoever's giving out the orders for this, right? If they didn't give Max this instruction to go for the best of the best, and then asked Walter to go for, okay, fill out the same kind of roles, but with much more, like I say, normal, down-to-earth kind of level of people, right? Not these big superstars who were effectively famous in their field for how good they were.
Yeah,
right?
Higher profile. That's what I was digging for.
Right. But what I'm saying is, though, is that something that they were ordered to do differently, or is that different tactics that they're using to try and win this, whatever it is, a game or something, science experiment, whatever it is? Because if it isn't something they were told to do, and this is actually a case of, no, Max has went for he's literally just been the boring person who's went, okay, one of the best actors in the world, one of the best scientists in the world, one of the best artists in the world, and he's just filled it out with the creme de la creme. Whereas if it was Walter's choice to not do that, and he instead went for like, oh, people that I've built up personal connections with, and people that I care about who fill into these different archetype roles, then that's an interesting distinction between, like, that already suggests some things about who Walter is versus who this Max is that's running this house.
It seems like, to me, just from this first issue, that Max is very hands-off and kind of just lets them do what they want to do within reason.
Well, hold on. There's a big thing you need to say there, though.
Yes.
this house seems to be a lot more aware of
what's going on,
what the status quo is, because they all know the world's ended. They know they can shape reality to whoever they want. Now, I know that our characters in the first book did kind of get to that point to some extent.
Eventually, but
right?
it took them, yeah.
But here, it feels like they all know the score. They're kind of bickering about the weather as if like, oh, we can choose, we can have it be sunny and beautiful every day, but it's a storm today, and that's because one person asked for it to be a storm. And that becomes this. It's almost like a group of housemates arguing about what channel to put the TV on.
Right.
And one person's like insisted on something that everyone else doesn't want. But in this case, it's the weather, which is kind of a funny like escalation of that type of argument. But that's the sort of things they're bickering about. There's clearly some tensions amongst these characters in some way.
There's even a sinister housemate that I feel I'm getting bad vibes from. Whereas,
oh sure, yeah.
In the other house, I just felt that these were all friends. And yeah, you might have a friend that gets on your nerves more than others, but they didn't feel like they were working against people. Where here, I feel that this writer, he's got bad vibes from the start. The one that wants it to be dark and stormy and all of that. Like, you know.
I also, I mean, I could be wrong, but I get the impression that there's more buildings here. It's like this more spread out over a sort of compound.
So right now I'm looking at all the characters on the last page, right? It's that, thing that they did in the last book.
Yeah.
It looks like the Greek coast, right? Where there's a lot of, rocky outcrops. But you're right. There's a lot of almost like villas, like these different areas that are connected by walkways.
Well, yeah. What was making me think this was actually earlier on in the book. It was like right before the list of all the names. There's a page where all their symbols are kind of like darted around at the edge of an island.
Yeah.
That was making me think, they're all spread out in this one. It's like a bigger area as opposed to just them all living in one house.
Right. Well, and I guess that also shows the philosophical differences. I also am taking this as this is the philosophical difference between Max and Walter, whereas Max is a lot more transparent with everything. Walter trying to hide it. But whereas Max is hands off, Walter was almost too involved with the test subjects, if you will. And that's what's led to some issues.
Well, here's the thing. Max clearly has interacted with some of these people before, but is he really personally attached to them in the same way that Walter was? I'm not sure.
Right.
That doesn't really come up quite much. But I think this issue does a really good job of establishing some of the differences with this house. For example, there's the artist character who's basically been given the power to reshape the world. So that's the character the others go to. It's not Max they go to say, hey, can we have the weather be different? They go to the artist and he kind of crafts it. But they're also going to the artist to like alter their own appearance. We meet a woman who's like almost 60 years old who's like posing nude for the artist, but the artist is like turned her back into a 20-year-old. And that's something that seems to have been going on. There's a character early.
An absolutely jacked 70-something-year-old history professor.
Yeah, you've got him, but you've also got the character that tries to sleep with the actor, the writer, he's the one that wants to storm. But he mentions in his little bio when you first meet him that he's 82 years old, but he doesn't look 82. And he's like, hey, we should have sex. We were eventually going to do it anyway. And it was established in the first couple of pages that the actor is gay, or at least bisexual anyway. But, like that's your first hint of that. I like that it hinted that, and you're like, wait, because he even has a line where he says, it's not like I'm the old man that arrived here. And I'm like, wait, are you all in your like peak physical condition or something? Like, is that something that Max did? But then, of course, a couple of pages later, we find out that the artist is using this sort of fold-out sort of thing with all the symbols on it to alter people. And like this woman, the scientist she is.
She's a scientist. Quinn, yeah.
Quinn's like bragging about how great she looks and how she's like, oh, why is anyone being a prude here? It's fine, it's just us. But later on, there's the other woman who's like upset, like the senator who's like, oh, that's a 60-year-old woman almost who's acting like a little girl, and she's been sleeping with different members of the house. I saw her leaving somewhere the other night, and like it really sets up some of the tensions and how different this house is to the other one. Obviously, there's a lot of similarities in the sense that they've got the control that the other house, in theory, started to learn that they had, but they seem to just have accepted it. They seem to be living. There's some tensions, but they're not like constantly fighting and trying to get out. Whereas in Nice House by the Lake, as they learned what was going on, they were like, some of them were trying to fix things. Walter kept erasing their memories to like try and fight that. Here it kind of feels like these characters, maybe it's because they're egotistical or whatever, but they've all just kind of accepted that they get to live, immortal style.
They were the chosen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it feels
They were
like.
the chosen ones. We do what we want, and the actors kind of not comfortable with that, because as you look in the way that this book uses like emails and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that's something. Yeah, we were going to get to is that there's like a draft of an email that he didn't send, like, because it's hovering over the yes, delete this draft. But it was basically him turning down the invitation and knowing what it was as well, like knowing that the world's going to end. And I think I'm just going to I've had a good run. I don't want to like live forever. I want to just go and be with my family and die. But he doesn't send it, right? So, but he had that thought, and it does make me question, like, okay, he was on the borderline, right? He almost dropped out, but it makes me wonder: are all these other people who are at this particular house, are they also egotistical that they were all quite willing to like be saved? Like, at the end of the world, I get to live because I'm special.
I'm important.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. Yeah.
And I think too with the senator, one of the things that stood out was she says that the scientist didn't act or look like that in her 20s, and it's disgusting. So it's kind of like she's been able to edit herself to the person she wants to be instead of having to be the person that she was, and I think that's also very interesting. And set in this world, like, what does that mean going forward?
And she's one of a few characters who are like, obviously the writers changed themselves. That was mentioned before. You've got this jacked 80-year-old that we mentioned before. Like, there's at least 3 or 4 characters in this group who have basically used the powers of God effectively to basically be what they want to be. So it definitely feels like this is the more vain house in a lot of ways.
Yes, I see. I thought there was a misprint of the age of the historian, because like you're introduced to him, and he's introduced doing bench press with like a lot of weight, and you're like, wait, 76? No way that guy's 76. And then you keep reading and you find out, they're altering their appearance. Oh, okay, so they've fully taken advantage of all of the stuff in the house, kind of like the comedian did, and he started ordering everything that he could want. Right. And then just when you can get everything you want, it becomes kind of meaningless. These guys were just like, well, no, we get to do what we want. We're going to make it work for us.
Yeah, and again, the openness here is that this Max character shows up on the boat where the actor's sunbathing, and is like, hey, the meeting's about to start. Can we go the quick way? And he's like, I don't like it, but sure, let's go. And yeah, he just uses his powers, like his alien powers, to like sort of walk through the back code, if you will, of this place, and they just sort of appear in the sort of the steps at the beach with everyone else. Which again is very Greek, actually. That was a good thing to point out. So yeah, all this stuff is like they're just like, hey, let's toast to the fact that we've all been here for 2 years. Of course, the actor looks quite somber. The art does a good job of saying that he's showing that he's conflicted as he says cheers with everyone else. Especially contrast with the colorful background behind Max as he's making the toast, and then he's just almost in black and white with his reaction. So. Really good stuff. But yeah, so it's like the compromise was that it'll be sunny during the day, but then it'll storm at night, and if anything, that's more moodier and dramatic anyway. So we get this great 2-page layout of like the rain and storm and all that, and like the actor's up at the window looking out, and he grabs his coat and says, "Why not?" Which does kind of imply that maybe he's taking the writer up and he's offered to go have sex. Because the writer's whole thing at the start was like, oh, eventually we're going to get bored and we're going to have sex. You're probably good at it, so let's just do it.
And the writer was like, yeah, you've had a lot more experience of it at this. I'm sure you've had dozens of lovers. And you're just like, geez, man. Like, cut the guy a break.
Oh, dear. Yeah, so it's a whole thing. And it's mentioned here that the artist is, like, he can alter things, and Max has given him that ability. But there are limits, right? He's not meant to go too far with certain things, and we don't really know what those limits are. But the writer basically convinces him to like push it a bit further. Like, this storm's great, but let's go a bit further. And the artist is like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's make them feel it. And this leads to a big cliffhanger where all this lightning's striking, and the actor's out in his raincoat on the beach, and one of these colorful portals opens up from the lightning strike. and out walks. Actually, not yet. Sorry, hon, I'm jumping ahead. When he gets hit with the sort of the lightning from this portal, it leads to a flashback. This actor knew Walter.
Yep.
This is our first sort of big, other than just the overall premise, obviously. This is our first direct connection to.
So the thing that got
there.
me there, where I had forgotten. So I'm sure if I had reread Nice House by the Lake, it would have clicked. But at the beginning, he says, "Me and a friend used to have this game where we talk about how we thought the world would end." And
yeah, that reminded me of the last book as well, because that used to come up all the time. Yeah.
Right. And then when we get to this point, I was like, "Oh, the friend he's talking to is Walter," because that's how Walter picked the people, to be in his house. So of course he knew Walter. That was the friend that they played the game with, and I was like, "Oh, okay, very well."
Yeah, he's lying on a couch with Walter, and Walter's basically saying, "Yeah, the only others that know about it are these, 2 or 3 others, and they only remember when I let them remember." Again, which is referencing stuff from the other book. So yeah, but the actor says to him, "But you're supposed to bring the best out in people, right? What happens if we're not the best people?" So again, that idea of the self-doubt has been something that's there for this character. And that's when Walter says, "Then I guess the other houses will win." So not just other house, there's more than 2.
Houses, yeah.
So it really suggests that they're competing for, like, to prove that humanity can do something, or like, is there a bigger meaning or purpose to this, or is it just for their entertainment? Like, I genuinely don't know at this point. But super, super fascinating, though, having this connection that one of them knew Walter, and Walter intended on bringing this character to his house, but wasn't able to, is really quite, like, did he get poached from Max? Did Max poach this character from him?
Like, has there been some backbiting stuff between the people in charge, and yeah, it's very, very curious.
Or not even in charge. I don't even know if they were in charge. They may just be the players. Like, they're arranging the houses. They're the players of the game, effectively.
Yeah. Well, I meant in charge. I meant because we don't know aliens. Whatever interdimensional.
Oh yeah.
Whatever. That's who I meant.
But I definitely get the impression that Max and Walter are the top of the pyramid, right? There's someone above them for sure.
They're definitely middle management.
Yeah. So yeah, then the portal acts all wonky. There's a bright light, and basically, like, the actor says, "Walter, is that you?" And the final page is 3 of the characters from the first book, and one of them says, "Oliver, you're alive," which makes me think that Oliver probably was mentioned in the first book, and I just don't remember it because they probably, because they talked a lot in that last book. There was a lot of flashbacks, a lot of letters being written to each other, talking about people they knew.
Well, there was that, and the fact that there was 2 artists, right? There was a new one, and then Reg.
Yes.
Reg is the one who says that. And the fact that Reg wasn't supposed to be there, right? Because Walter violated the rules and had an extra person there.
No, I remember
the other writer here too, which is Nora.
That's what I was just about to say. This middle character's the writer.
Yep.
I cannot remember who the other 2 are immediately.
Yes.
I must admit.
So one is Reg, who they talked about earlier, right?
Right, that's on the right.
He was the artist. The other one was the artist that we're first introduced to in the first issue. She was the one that was supposed to replace Reg, because Reg couldn't go. She was the newest of Walter's friends. I don't remember her name, but she was the redundancy.
Right, okay.
Yes.
Interesting. So obviously this is a big cliffhanger, because this is the thing. Halfway through this issue, I was like, "Oh man, this is so good. Like, I'm okay with this, like, being like mostly just its own story, its own house, and then maybe it'll connect with the other one at the end or something." But no, Tynion hit me with it at the end of issue 1. Here, these characters who went wandering and were trying to break down the system, because we never got like an ending with that, right? It ended on this sort of open cliffhanger. We knew there had to be more, and here they are at the end of this issue. And what do they think of these other characters and how they're using this house? What do they think? I mean, and what are they going to learn? I know they learned some stuff from Walter by the end of last series, but do these characters know more, and they're going to find out some more stuff? Like,
yeah, but it's because this group, Walter's group, forced Walter's hand.
Yes.
By the end, so they almost tricked him, and so it's like, well, is Max a different kind of person? That well, I guess we'll see. But yeah, this is almost like Nice House season 2, right? Like, it seemed like it was going to be its own thing, and then boom, you drop in. Because I was like, like you said, if I don't see any other characters, that's okay, because this is this house's journey. How are they reacting? And then to have these 3 show up at the end, and you're like, oh wow, an honest surprise.
Don't get me wrong, it was always going to connect eventually. I just thought it might go a good number of issues before it did. But and maybe this is still the right choice because this is very exciting to have this at the end. It's like, okay, we spent most of an issue treating this like its own thing, but obviously it's not. Obviously this is the continuation of that previous book. And if anything, it does feel like a season 2. It feels like I won't spoil exactly what happens in it, but the opening scene of Lost season 2 did something. I mean, even season 3 of Lost did a sort of similar thing where we start off in a character we don't really know, and then by the end of this first scene, it's like, oh, this is how it connects to the rest of the show, and then we go forward. This is kind of like that.
You're talking about the Who's in the Hatch?
Yes.
Okay, so I thought. It's been a while, so that's why. You remember that type of stuff better than I do when it comes to TV. So
I don't know why, but it's, yeah.
Hey, I remember obscure comic book character names. You remember actual story beats in TV shows. So
yeah, I mean, there was so much in that first Nice House series that, you know, I'm excited that nothing was hard to follow here, and even if I don't remember character like names and whatnot, because I would never go into, this still flowed really well. The art here made it very obvious who these characters were at the end. You know, this was a great cliffhanger. I think it did a good job of setting up at least our new main character from this second house, which is the actor. If nothing else, because even like him at the start feeling guilty about being here, he's talking about remembering that he talked to this young guy at a bar, and he asked the kid the question, hey, like, if you only had 18 hours left to live, what would you do? And this young guy explained that he'd probably go back home and see his little brother because he's going through a rough time and he's not really been there for him and he feels guilty. And he basically gave him every bit of money he had on him. He gave him $500 from his wallet and said, go home and do that. Which makes me think that this was literally 18 hours before the end of the world. He was basically saying, go do it. And he's like, I always wondered, did he ever go? He probably didn't, but I kind of hope he did. I hope he did that with his final 18 hours. Because
when a stranger gives you $500, you're not thinking in the right mind.
Yeah.
You know?
He probably went and did something stupid, but that sense of regret really is sold there. So it's interesting that we've got a character here who seemingly remembers everything that he ever did with Walter and what might come of that when he starts talking to these characters. So, yeah. But, you know, it's all very good stuff. Like, honestly, it was a stark reminder very quickly of how good this series was. Obviously, I think Tynion has a game plan in mind. Like, you know, he's got a roadmap for what the whole story is, and we're in phase 2, right? That's where we're at.
And it was ready to pick back up, because like I forgot this was coming out, and then it dropped this week, right? Like we talked about it a little bit before because of the solicits and whatnot, but still to drop it into this world and have stuff come back, almost like sense memories, that was a nice feeling, you know. So Tynion's really good at that.
Yeah. Well, having said that, now that we're saying that he seems to remember everything, I almost wonder if he didn't until he got hit with that lightning. Like that memory with Walter felt like it was coming back to him because he got hit with that. So
and we know Walter likes to erase memories too. Right?
Walter does love to erase memories. So
that's his thing.
I do wonder if that's like this memory had been erased because he always just did that with his friends, and this was it coming back. Yeah, that's interesting actually. Yeah. So very excited to see these characters intermingle and talk about what's going on. And will Max be a threat? Are we going to get Max versus Walter at some point? Because Max threatens like Walter's people. I don't know. There's some interesting ways. Are they going to hide here? Are they going to try and pretend that they're not here so they can sneak around for a bit? I don't know.
Maybe we'll see other houses through them too, because they have access to the control room. Well, they did, right? So you know, maybe that's how we're going to get introduced to these different houses. Yeah. So super interesting. So just to sort of run down the cast here, just because I'm in the last page now with all these names. So we got the Doctor, who's Hector Aguilar, which, I mean, I'm never going to remember these names, but the roles are the best they'll do. Yes.
We got the priest, who we didn't really mention. It was briefly in one scene.
Yeah, he was very funny because like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing body modification. I'm like, hey, shut up, holy man. We'll do what we want. And I was like, oh, well, that's an omen. Like, you know.
We got the scientist, Quinn. That's the woman who made herself much, much younger.
Yeah.
We have the singer, Cherry Campbell, who we didn't mention, but she was in one scene. She was out sunbathing, even though it wasn't sunny, and then she was happy when the sun came out. But Yeah, she's like a Taylor Swift level megastar. That was like her blurb.
Yeah.
Right?
All of those.
The historian, Henry Allen, which I'm not going to lie, I thought of The Flash a little bit.
Yes, me too.
The senator, Margaret Collins. And then we got the actor, who's the main one we've been following. And we got the mathematician, who we also saw. He was like the teacher style character.
Mm-hmm.
And then we briefly also saw the artist, who's Soko Tanaka, who did kind of give the side eye to the actor. The actor waves at her at one point, and she just kind of turns her head and doesn't really entertain the interaction. So there's a couple of them that don't get much time in this first issue, and that's fine, because they're obviously there's a lot of characters. We can't spend too much time in all of them. But yes, very intriguing. I wonder if we go back to the other house, or if we see those other characters at some point. I bet we do, but maybe not right away. So exciting.
Very much so. Yeah, these characters definitely, it feels like there's a theme to them versus Walter's, which seem much more personal. So
yeah, I mean, like I say, they kind of fill the same slots in the sense that, okay, we've got a scientist, we've got a doctor, we've got a whatever. You know, we're filling all the same kind of roles, but yeah, it's like, it's instead of just having a singer that you know, it's Taylor Swift. Instead of just having an actor you know, oh, it's I don't know, Dustin Hoffman or whatever. I don't know. It was only 33, so that's a bad example, but whatever.
Yeah, but they can look how Oliver they'll let. Maybe he wants to look like Dustin Hoffman now. I'm not going to judge.
Oh no, because Oliver specifically says he doesn't want to do that. He says he's happy with the way he looks.
No, I know. I was making a joke at the if he wants to look like old Dustin Hoffman, I'm not going to stop him. He has free will.
Yes.
But I think it's curious that there is a holy man here. There's a priest, a person of faith, in this grand experiment, and I wonder how that factors in with Max, because there wasn't in the last house.
Well, there wasn't a priest, but I'm pretty sure there was one person who was religious. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, but someone religious versus somebody that is dedicated their lives to that. But then again, that's someone that's dedicated their life to a craft, just like the singer, it's the senator, right? So
yeah, that's the thing. This is the extreme version. Like, what's the? I mean, he's not a superstar. I mean, I suppose you could have the Pope if you really wanted to go to the top of the line, but like, what's the like equivalent to the normal religious person in this house? It's like there's a priest, there's someone who's full on,
right?
So.
I want more about the Jack's historian, because that speaks to me.
You like history and you like
lifting weights.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. Obviously, fantastic first issue. Got me super pumped for it. And obviously, we've got all this other DC stuff going on. It's nice to have this weirder, different non-superhero book as well. But what are you giving Nice House by the Sea, Matt?
I'm going to give this a 9.
Yep, hard to... I was even tempted to go 9.5. I'm going to stick to the 9. I don't want to let the hype hit me too much on this first one, but 9 out of 10 as well for me. All right, so every month at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, you can get one of the higher tiers that makes me read a comic of your choosing every month. Today, I'm looking at American Vampire Second Cycle Issue 10, which is the penultimate issue of this particular miniseries. Not the final miniseries, admittedly, though. We've still got more American Vampire after this. But, so, this is a very action-packed issue. It's not in a bad way, though, because it does feel like it's paying off, much like the Detective Comics issue we spoke about earlier. It feels like it's paying off everything that this arc's been building up to. Like, everything was set up over the last couple issues. So, Skinner and Poole fighting the vampires from the space satellite in space is like a big chunk of that, and like even the opening page is just like a shot of the moon, and the panel sort of pulls back, and then there's some blood floating in front of it. Then eventually we see the actual carnage of the fighting between them, and all the rest of it. Skinner's suite goes full gravity at one point in this, where his like line gets cut and he's like floating out into space, and he has to try and like maneuver back, but he can't. So Poole has to like fly out and get him, and like they've got one burst to try and get back to the capsule. So it's a whole big thing. They do take care of the vampires, though. There's a whole big tense moment where the last Russian vampire goes to the like the eject button to sort of launch the film from the camera down to Earth, which will obviously ruin everything that they're there to stop. Of course, Skinner and Poole don't know that they're actually helping the bad guys by doing this now, which is something that's reiterated later on. But it's very, very exciting. It's very, and the way it sort of cuts between the two fights. So one fight's in space with our vampires and astronaut suits fighting other vampires, and then the other stuff is Pearl and Felicia fighting like vampires from this military base and escaping, and sort of like, okay, they've got the Izuku, the super weapon, they're taking it to the beast itself and the Grey Trader. What can we do? And this takes a surprising turn here, actually, where Felicia shoots Pearl a couple times and is like, sorry, Pearl, there's no hope left. The only thing we can do now is try and save the rest of the planet by nuking, like, where this stuff is. We have to stop them from getting it. So it becomes this thing where it feels like Felicia's taking a sort of a dark turn, but she's really just, she knows that Pearl will try and stop her, so she's putting her down for a bit. But Pearl makes a big grand speech about having optimism and hope still, and like, we can still do this, we can still stop them, and that's a big part of the issue as well. But there's also stuff with Skinner's like fighting back, like the Grey Trader sort of like infection taking over, because his gold IV gets cut, so he's not getting gold anymore, so which was what was helping him sort of keep it at bay. So there's like a sort of panel where it cuts to like the mouth of the Grey Trader, and he's like, no, damn it, stay out of my head. That stuff's pretty fun as well. He does make a really interesting point here, though, is that these vampires and the satellite can fight them freely because they're on the sun's on the other side of Earth right now. And Skinner points out, you know, there's a lot of stars in the sky. Why is it only our sun that's a problem for them? And I'm like, that's a really interesting point that I don't know if I've ever heard a vampire story tackle. Like, I guess the simple explanation that most would just go with is that, well, the stars in the sky are just little blinks of light because they're so far away. By the time it gets here, it's so diluted and weak.
Or to have something to do with the atmosphere, right? It has to have the light, the UV.
Oh, maybe.
Has to be dispersed to be lethal to a vampire.
Maybe it's like a Superman thing because they're sired under a yellow sun. It's the yellow sun that'll hurt them.
Yeah, maybe.
There you go. That's some headcanon for you. All that stuff in space is really good, though. It's all just really fun Albuquerque art of like lots of speed lines and stuff. Skinner going flying through space, trying to grab, because that's why he gets disconnected. He goes to grab the film that's been ejected, and he does get it, but it's a whole moment. But Pearl and Felicia, while Pearl's making her big speech to try to talk Felicia out of like doing this and saying, think of your son, think of all this. And remember, there was that teaser a few issues ago that there is going to be a post-apocalyptic version of Nevada and California, that maybe this does happen. There's some speculation that there must be a mole like in the VMs, like someone has tipped them all off, like they knew what was happening, and that actually pays off at the end, because we get this big thing where Poole gets Skinner, comes out and grabs him. There's a great silent, well, it's almost silent panel of the, like, just the two astronaut suits like with the moon behind them, like holding each other's hand. Really, really good stuff.
Huh.
Really
atmospheric. I'm sure that looks great with Albuquerque, right?
Oh yeah, it's great. Because it's basically almost monochrome except from the sheen of the visors are kind of gold, but like everything else is sort of light grey blue and blacks. Really good stuff though. And they fire back, and Pearl and Felicia are riding a helicopter to drop Pearl onto the truck carrying the Izuku. The military vampire guy who we've had in the last couple issues is like, oh, they've got a lot of moxie, but like, whatever. But they don't want to damage the Izuku, so they're not just blowing everything up. All right. But the big payoff here is that Bixby, the VM guy who's like talking to the two guys in space, is like, yeah, everyone's rooting for a way to get back down, but there's a problem here, is the pilots were poisoned before you went up, so there's no one to captain the ships back down. And they're like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, everyone's hoping you'll find a way to get back down, except me. Bixby is a bad guy. He's working for the villains. And he's like, oh, thanks for taking care of that film so the Russians don't know anything. You've really helped us out there. Because the Russians fire on the nuke, because that's basically what Felicia was going to do. Is like, well, if we can't stop them, then we have to nuke the place instead, because at least if we do it internally, it won't start the war. Like,
right?
Because the US will be like, wait, that was one of our own nukes. What's going on? Whereas, this will be total annihilation if Russia launches the nuke. But effectively they've helped out though, because it means Russia's not going to try and stop this either. So yeah, we get this super big cliffhanger where they're stranded in space. Bixby's like smirking to himself because he thinks he's gotten away with it. And while Pearl and Felicia have overtaken the truck with the Isaku, and they think they're going to a safe place, they're actually going to a place filled with bad guys. Like Bixby's got like vamps with guns waiting for them. They're going right where we want them, is basically what he says. And that's the cliffhanger for next issue. Like, if it felt like I didn't describe that much plot, it's because it is all action. It's all of this stuff playing out, and it's all beautiful. Like, you know, you've got both like all this like gravity style action stuff in space, right? Even if anything, it's better once the other vampires are dead, because once it stops being fighting and it starts being more just we have to try and get through this in a sort of like survival sort of thing. That's when it really works and clicks, and the art gets to like avoid doing the speed line stuff and more just doing, oh, this is the scary silence of space and all that. And then that cuts to, oh, our two ladies are in a helicopter chasing down a truck in the desert, and you get all these speed lines. It feels like an action movie. Like, all of that's great. Like, this is like an 8.5, I think, overall for me. It's a really good payoff to everything it's been doing. In one of the best issues of the arc, I would say. So there's one last issue of this arc, so we'll see how it wraps up next month. But there you go. So, before we get to the final part of the show, though, Matt did interject and say that there's a couple of new announcements since we started recording. So just to sort of add these in here at the moment. So one is a JSA book, which we were hoping we'd get a new JSA book after, you know, Johnson's book wraps up. It's nice that they've not been left behind. And remember how I was saying earlier in the show that it's nice to have Lemire on a book, but it's a shame that he's only doing like an absolute book and he's not doing a book in the main line? Well, funny that, because Jeff Lemire is writing JSA. And we have a team, by the looks of it, of Hawkgirl, Jay Garrick, Wildcat, Dr. Fate, Alan Scott, and Hawkman. Very interesting. So yeah, very, very cool.
So he said that this is a dream of his that he's been wanting to do, and he's going to include Infinity Inc., which was kind of the JSA kind of all-stars before. So that's where I think Jade and Obsidian had come from back in the day. I think Atom Smasher was on that team. So looks like they are still going to be the legacy style characters. He's going to use kind of them all. So the thing that I have has that team with the Hawks, and as you said, but then underneath there, it looks like the more of the Infinity Inc. team, right? There's Wildcat, Jesse Quick, Jakeem Thunder, Obsidian, Sand, Dr. Midnight, Jade, and Hourman. Yeah. So we're going to have them all.
Yeah, there's a lot of other characters there. And interestingly, you can see the newer, sort of younger female Dr. Midnight, but it's the older male Wildcat in the image.
Yeah.
So curious to see how that pans out. But I mean, yeah, if he's been wanting to do this forever and they're finally letting him, like, just let him cook, let him have a nice long run. Yes. I do not want this to just be 12 issues. I want this to go for as long as he's got stories in the tank.
He started the Terrifics, right? That started with him?
Yes, that was him.
Yeah. So
that was one of the last. I mean, other than the Black Label Swamp Thing book he did briefly. Yeah. That was like the last DC thing he did, I think.
Let the man cook. Please, I want to be excited for JSA.
And then the other news is we finally got some news on what Ram V's doing. Ram V, and this was kind of teased before, so it's not a huge surprise, but he's doing the New Gods, right? So he's doing some Jack Kirby Fourth World stuff. Evan Cagle is doing some cover art for this. This is his DC debut. But yeah, I mean, this was sort of like just sort of tucked away into the announcement with the GSA stuff. I think Ram V was talking about it on Twitter, so there's not a lot of information right now. But there is a cover, like as a lot of these have had, and this is starting a little bit later as well. I think this is starting in December.
December. He also said the Absolute and All In triggers a cosmic imbalance, which starts the spiral between New Genesis and Apocalypse. And it's also a story about fatherhood. So. Yeah.
I'm just imagining like the writers' retreats here, where you've got Ram V, Tom Taylor, Al Ewing, Jason Aaron, Scott Snyder, Kelly Thompson, Tom King. I'm imagining, like, honestly, if you just took out Williamson, right? If you just remove Williamson from the equation, you've got like such and Mark Waid. I even mentioned Mark Waid there. Like the idea that they're kind of all concocting where the DCU is going for the next couple of years with all this shit is actually very exciting to me.
If I had to pick names to go, those are the ones that I would pick. So whatever DC's doing, just keep it up.
If anything, I just hope Ram V's on another book as well. But I mean, if this is what he's doing, if this is what he's putting all his focus on, because he's doing other projects, other indie stuff, then that's fine. But do a small book as well. Go on, take a little I don't know, like pick a C-list character you like Ram V and do a little cool story with them. I'd be up for that.
Yes.
Or actually, just give us season 2 of the Vigil.
Vigil, yeah.
Which they did promise, to be fair.
Yeah. So maybe that's the other book that he's going to be working on too. This is not ready yet. Ready to announce, but very, very exciting to be a DC fan right now.
Yep. I'm also seeing some covers for this. They're doing that Green Lantern Corps special before the new book launches.
The Civil Corps.
Yeah, there's a cover with Guy, John, Hal, Joe, Jess, and Kyle on it. Which is pretty cool. I mean, sucks for Baz, but it's nice to see everyone else.
Seemingly forgetting Baz,
Yeah, I'm just glad Jess hasn't been forgotten because she's my favorite, and I don't want her to be forgotten. Like, I would happily lose Guy if we're making room for other Lanterns.
How dare you?
Anywho,
who's gonna show up and be the kind of villain in these other kind of books? Not Simon. It's gonna be Guy.
Oh, I mean like the jerk, not a villain, just the jerk.
Yeah, but he's kind of the side of the antagonist. He's working against our protagonist in different ways.
Yeah. Oh, and there's also some art for Green Lantern Dark, which looks interesting as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of juicy stuff coming out of Comic-Con. So we luckily got some new news before the end of the show. So here's your news round 2. But there's probably maybe even going to be more on Sunday or something. But yes, obviously anything else that comes out after this, we'll just talk about next week. But cool to see. So yeah, honestly, it's actually kind of great but scary how many of the books that have been announced all sound good.
It makes it easier to drop stuff like Green Arrow and Flash right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So just for the record, I think Fourth World or New Gods rather is December, but it sounds like some of the other things we've talked about today are coming in November. So obviously we'll have confirmations on that when we get the November solicits, but obviously we just had October solicits, so we know what's coming then. So cool. All right. That'll take us out to the final part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and top 5 books. So Matt, what is your panel / moment of the week?
Let's see. I could pull something from Zatanna. I like that. Power Girl had some nice ones. Nice House. You know what? I'll take more of a comedic one, and it was Two-Face shooting the werewolf with the silver bullet, and be like, I can't believe that worked. That was a lot of fun.
Part of me really wants to go with a great atmospheric moment from Nice House by the Sea because it probably deserves it, but part of me also wants to just say bonk.
It's another good one.
So I think I'm going to go with bonk. So bonk.
Bonk.
All right. Cover of the week. I've not, despite the fact that you had 3 books that I didn't. I did not spend any of that time looking at covers. So you got any picks, Matt?
Yeah, so there's a couple. They're not going to come as a surprise. There's a Jenny Frisian Zatanna cover that just looks awesome. It's got her with the doves. Her black coat is fading in with the background. There's a bunch of stars coming around. I really like that one. There's the main cover for Bringing Down the House, also really good. It's all yellow with Zatanna in the background. I also want to spotlight there's a Dodson Power Girl cover that just looks really, really nice. So but if I have to pick, I'm going with the Frisian Zatanna cover.
Sure. I like the Frisian Zatanna cover. The main cover's good too, but I think the Frisian one looks really, really nice. I I think the main detective cover looks really good. Batman looking out at the city on fire. Nice and simple, stark. I think I probably have to go with the main cover for Nice House by the Sea, though, which is the actor holding a skull, which is obviously people think of actors, they think of Hamlet holding the skull, right. So it's got a bit of a double meaning there. But the idea that he is standing in front of like the Greek-looking building on fire, like Athens is on fire behind him, but it's like it's actually being projected onto a wall, and he's standing in front of the projector instead of the actual event. I think that's a really symbolic and thematic thing that they're doing there with that, which is interesting. So, Nice House by the Sea. All right, what was your art of the week, Matt?
So this is where it's tough, because Nice House by the Sea, very, very, very good. But so is Zatanna. That being said, I think because of the coloring, I'm going to give it to Zatanna just by a little bit. So yeah, that's my pick.
I think I got your Nice House by the Sea. It's just so atmospheric. The layouts are fantastic. It juggles so many characters effortlessly. Stuff like the stormy night, the use of powers, the way it does the flashbacks, the way it's pretty straightforward panels for the most part, but when the actor gets hit with the lightning or whatever you want to call it, and like it does this weirder thing with the face at the top and bottom, to like I don't know, it has everything. Right? It has the good performances from the cast in terms of like their expressions. Zatanna's wonderful, and Zatanna might have even won issue 1 for me when it came out, but I think I got to go with Nice House by the Sea. All right, Matt, top 5 books.
All right, so number 1's going to be Nice House by the Sea. 2 is Zatanna. 3 is Tech. 4 is Origins. And 5 is Power Girl. Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay. For me, number 1 is Nice House by the Sea. Number 2 is Detective Comics. Number 3 is Zatanna, Bring Down the House. And then 4 is Absolute Power Origins, I guess, by default, because I only had 4 books. So there you go. Still, though, interesting week overall. Very good. So let's see what's coming next week, and it's a week 5, so it's actually kind of a weird week. So honestly, it'd have been nice to have all this cool news next week. What is it, Matt?
Fun. I just looked at what the books that are left, and the only thing I can read is Task Force 7, and now I'm mad.
Wait, is that all we're going to talk? Hold on. We might make a decision here. Absolute Power Task Force 7 issue 3, Red Hood the Hell issue 6, Super Pets Special Bite Identity Crisis issue 1, and then Facsimile editions. Okay, we didn't talk about this beforehand because honestly neither of us looked ahead.
Nope.
Guys, I think next week we're just going to take a week off.
Hallelujah. I'm not. All right, see you guys later. I'm done. I get a week off.
Yeah, we're not done with this episode yet, Matt. Calm your jets.
I know.
We literally have 1 book, and it's not like it's like, oh, I'm reading a second book or Matt's reading it. No, there's literally like Red Hood the Hell. We've not been reading. I mean, the Super Pet Special. We could, but like, I don't really want to.
I mean, and that's still just 2 books.
Yeah,
right?
Still just 2 books.
So I'm looking. There's a lot of good creators in that by Identity, but we don't cover those that much, anyways.
Yeah, but like, can that like hold a whole episode?
I don't think so.
I think we're just going to take the gift, right? We're just going to take the gift, and we'll just take a week off. And if we want to go back and do that Task Force 7 issue the following week, I doubt we will, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe it'll happen. Who can say?
So upset we didn't look this up. Let's see. What? Oh yeah. Then the following, they couldn't move some of these. We couldn't get Blue Beetle that week.
I mean, even just like moving Zatanna and like Nice House by the Sea this week would have just made. I mean, it would have been a short episode. Don't get me wrong, but it would at least been a couple.
I mean, the following week I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Well, actually, I may as well tell them what's coming that week as well, since
let's do it now because we're not going to be here next week.
Exactly, that'll be the next episode. So
let's go.
Right, coming the week after next week, which has basically nothing barring a Task Force 7 tie-in to Absolute Crisis. That week we'll have, this is the first week of August.
Yep.
We have Batman 151, Absolute Power issue 2, Birds of Prey 12, Shazam 14, The Boy Wonder issue 4, Blue Beetle issue 11, Gotham City Sirens issue 1. I forgot they were doing that, where they were stopping all the other books to do that for a month. I was like, I don't remember this being announced, but I do.
I do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Kneel Before Zod issue 8, My Adventures of Superman issue 3, Batman Scooby-Doo Mysteries 8, and then another Scooby-Doo book, and then the facsimiles and whatnot. So yeah, it's not a super huge week that week either, to be fair. I mean, I've only got 5 books, so that's fine. So
that's
cool.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
Week
honestly,
5.
they usually give us at least a couple of things so we do show up. There's definitely been a couple of borderline ones where I'm like, we could just like save that one book for the following week, but like, it's not even like, see if it was like one book, but it was like a really important book, I'd be like, nah, let's just show up and have a short episode. But Task Force 7 issue 3,
yeah.
Like
if it was literally anything else but a book I just complained about, I'd be like, yeah, let's just get on, hang out, talk. You know, what's your you can't even do who's your dream JSA guy because we know who's on JSA now. You know,
that's true.
You know, so we can't even cut it up that way.
Yeah. So we're just, you know what, we'll just take the gift, we'll take the week off, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Apologies, but there's no books, and frankly, we clearly didn't plan ahead and had some sort of backup plan and whatnot. So.
Years ago, I would say take it up with DDO, but he ain't around no more. So, and everyone that works at DC, I'm sure works very hard and, you know, to make the positivity. So let's not yell at anybody, but let's get the shipping under control, guys.
Look, this is only the second week I've had off since this show started. I'm not going to be that mad that we're taking a week off. So,
you know, these smaller weeks I'm fully for. I know it's good to keep consistency, but you know, we get 1 or 2. If we could roll it over to the next week, I'm good because I'm working 6 days a week right now. So anytime off, I can get. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So we'll see you guys in 2 weeks, right? Right. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you very much for joining us. You can, of course, support the content over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and, you know, get some bonuses for your trouble. But that is the show. So thank you very much for joining. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. No episode next week. Bye, guys. Keep reading DC Comics. And remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.